After finally managing to steer the conversation away from Violet Sullivan and cheer Olivia up, she asked, "What are you doing out here?" Michael Thompson pointed to a bowl of beef jerky on the ground. "I felt a little awkward hanging around inside your house, so I came out for some fresh air. And a bribe, buddy." "Bribe?" Olivia followed his gaze and saw the bowl of beef jerky too. She just didn't understand what Michael meant by bribe. Michael Thompson said seriously, "Yeah, bribe. Think about it. Back when Romeo wanted to run off with Juliet, if her family had a guard dog like Buddy here, would Romeo have ever pulled it off? He'd climb the wall and get his butt bitten. So, I'm getting friendly with him now. That way, when I come climbing your wall later, at least he won't bark at me." You're planning to climb our wall? Who are you trying to run off with?" Olivia lowered her head shyly. Michael Thompson glanced around, made sure no one was watching, and leaned close to her ear. Olivia sensed him getting closer and instinctively wanted to pull back, but after a moment's hesitation, she closed her eyes, as if resigned. She heard Michael whisper, "Your grandfather has a lot of antiques and paintings in his study. I saw them. Some real treasures in there. Hey, why are you pouting?" "Michael Thompson." The sound of a girl's furious, embarrassed, teeth-gritting voice echoed through the yard as two figures chased each other, one after the other. In the study on the second floor of the Sullivan house, Arthur Sullivan stood by the window, watching the scene below. He smiled, shook his head, and let the curtain fall. After leaving the Sullivan house, Olivia didn't have the driver take Michael straight home. Instead, she started walking with him through the night streets. Michael wasn't exactly thrilled, hugging his arms and hunching his shoulders. "Why are you dragging me around? It's freezing. Didn't you say you want a late-night snack?" "What? I was just kidding. We just ate dinner. How could I be hungry?" Michael really was full. He hadn't held back at dinner and had happily cleaned his plate. Olivia mumbled, "Well, I'm still hungry, so just consider it keeping me company." Michael looked her up and down and muttered, "Tiny thing like you, but you sure can eat." "Hiss, what did you pinch me for?" "Oomph." Olivia quickened her pace, leaving Michael behind. Michael didn't seem to mind, grinning as he caught up. "Boss Olivia, even though you're my boss now, let's get one thing straight. I'm a respectable guy. My job description generally doesn't include escort services like accompanying you for meals, drinks, or conversation." He paused for a long moment, but Olivia didn't take the bait. So he added emphatically, "That'll cost extra." Olivia stopped abruptly and turned to face him. She suddenly broke into a brilliant smile and beckoned sweetly, "Michael Thompson, come here." But Michael, seeing her fist slowly clenching, quickly backtracked. "Never mind. Consider this one on the house. Get over here. Don't run." To Michael's surprise, the place Olivia took him for a late-night snack was the same little meatball sub shop he'd taken her to before. The shop wasn't far from the Sullivans' neighborhood. Michael remembered how Olivia had clearly seemed uncomfortable the first time they came, so he was surprised she'd chosen to bring him back here. They went inside and sat down. Olivia ordered, "2 meatball subs, please. 1 large, no cilantro, and 1 small, and 2 deviled eggs." "Coming right up," the owner replied and started preparing their food. After ordering, Olivia turned and saw Michael sitting quite far away, rubbing his ear where she'd pinched him. "Why are you sitting way over there?" "Distance lends enchantment. Come sit over here across from me. I'm not going to do anything. My mom always said the prettier the woman, the better she lies." That was Zhang Wuji's mom who said that. My mom said it too. Their exchange made the owner, who was putting the meatball subs together, chuckle. Olivia frowned slightly and tapped her foot lightly. Only then did Michael reluctantly move to sit across from her, muttering, "Fine." Besides, Zhang Wuji didn't listen to his mother in the end anyway. Seeing the owner trying to hide a smile, Olivia felt a little embarrassed and lightly kicked Michael under the table. They chatted for a while longer. Olivia was mostly curious about why her grandfather had called Michael into the study alone, and Michael answered her questions openly. While they were talking, the owner brought their food. Olivia ate in small bites, sneaking glances at Michael. Seeing that he hadn't touched the deviled eggs on the small plate, she couldn't help asking, "Aren't you going to eat that?" Michael glanced at it. "I'm not really hungry. You have it. I ordered it for you." "All right." He put down his spoon and started peeling one of the deviled eggs. Just as he finished peeling and was about to scoop out the yolk, he suddenly remembered what happened last time. Right, better not do anything too familiar around Olivia. Don't want her to get annoyed. With that thought, he started to pop the whole peeled egg into his mouth. But before it reached his lips, he looked up and saw Olivia staring intently at him. "What? Don't you dislike the egg whites?" Actually, he liked them. Michael could only slowly scoop out the yolk and eat it, putting the egg white back on the small plate. Olivia nonchalantly picked up the egg white. As she put it in her mouth, she saw Michael watching her and turned her head away, so he couldn't see her eating. It's not good to waste food. Michael watched her eat. Once he saw she'd swallowed, he said, I just remembered. Earlier at your place, I was listening to music while I used the bathroom, and I forgot to wash my hand when I came out. Cough, cough. Olivia almost choked, clapping a hand over her mouth. Michael kindly handed her a glass of water, smiling. I'm kidding. Olivia took a sip of water, relieved. How could I possibly listen to music in the bathroom? So the part about not washing his hands was true? Olivia was so angry her hands trembled. Even if she knew he was just teasing her, she was still mad. She put down her glass, her eyes turning red as she said plaintively, Michael Thompson, can you please try not to make me mad so often? The confession, switching shifts. He says he likes me, but he doesn't do anything. She'd clearly been upset today and had wanted to talk to Michael about it, wanted him to comfort her. But instead, he just made her angry again. Olivia was feeling miserable, and then she looked up and saw Michael bent over a notebook, drawing, apparently not having heard a word she said. Seriously? Now? Her emotions flared instantly, like a volcano about to erupt. But before she could explode, Michael turned the notebook around. On the page was a drawing of a cute little raccoon kowtowing, with a speech bubble next to it. I'm sorry. Michael flipped the page. On the next one, the little raccoon was whipping a cartoon version of Michael himself. The caption read, I'll teach him a lesson for you. He flipped another page. This time, the raccoon was holding out a flower. A little flower for you. Don't be mad anymore. Olivia stared at the notebook, momentarily forgetting her anger. Michael asked quietly, should we add a clause to the contract? Do not anger the boss. She burst out laughing, her smile radiant. Yes, angering the boss means a pay cut. Yes, Sullivan the slave driver. He always managed to make her mad, but he also knew best how to make her happy again. The next day, Michael Thompson deliberately woke up extra early for school. It was still dark out, but he was wide awake as he got ready to leave. He even turned down his uncle, who had planned to drive Emily Thompson to school and give Michael a ride too. There was, of course, a reason he was up so early. Instead of heading straight for the bus stop, Michael Thompson went directly to the Bank of America branch in town. Olivia Sullivan had given him the startup capital he'd been dreaming of yesterday. Although she hadn't mentioned how much was on the card, and Michael had been tactful enough not to ask, that didn't mean he wasn't curious. Naturally, the bank wasn't open yet at this hour, but there was an ATM right next to it. He inserted the card into the ATM, entered the PIN, 6 8s, and quickly checked the balance. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. 100,000. Wow, Olivia really is generous. $100,000. For a high school student, that was an unimaginable fortune. But Olivia Sullivan had just given it to him, so casually. The trust felt a bit baffling to Michael Thompson. Staring at the balance on the screen, Michael Thompson started calculating how he should use this money. Honestly, it wasn't a huge amount for his future plans, but for the short term, it was enough. He was still just a high school student after all. Trying to make big moves in high school wasn't realistic. Michael Thompson didn't have that kind of time. High school wasn't laid back like college. The rules were strict, especially a college prep-focused place like Oakwood High School. Unless he dropped out, which was even less likely. Forget his family's reaction. He himself was still dreaming of getting into the Rhode Island School of Design, finally shedding his self-taught background and becoming a properly trained professional. So, starting a proper studio or even a company that could wait until college. Therefore, Michael Thompson decided to use this money to go for something unconventional. As for making money, his initial thought was to do what he did when he first started out in his previous life. Take online gigs for game concept art, illustrations, and the like. But after thinking it over, he abandoned that idea. Because this was 2008. Smartphones weren't widespread yet, and the pay-to-win mobile games reliant on gorgeous artwork hadn't taken off. Consequently, the market for concept art wasn't great either. As for fashion and jewelry design, Michael Thompson's strongest suits, the barriers to entry were too high. Often, it wasn't about your actual talent, but your reputation. In his past life, Michael Thompson had been lucky. His own brand had become successful, making him well-known in the industry. If he had just applied to big companies with his resume after graduation, he probably wouldn't have even gotten in the door. Originally, he planned to start with his uncle Ben Thompson's clothing factory, drum up orders, handle production, and replicate his path to success from his previous life. But the system he'd acquired after being reborn gave him the chance to try something unconventional. And that unconventional path was stone gambling. After arriving at school, Michael Thompson went to his former honors class, looking for Jake Wilson, but Jake hadn't arrived yet. Olivia Sullivan, however, was already in the classroom, busy memorizing English vocabulary. She was focused on her book and didn't notice Michael Thompson peering in from the doorway. But Claire Evans, who was erasing the blackboard, saw him and called out teasingly to Olivia, "Olivia, Michael Thompson's here for you." Michael Thompson froze for a second. He wasn't here for Olivia Sullivan. A wave of teasing erupted in the classroom. Blushing, Olivia Sullivan stood up and quickly walked out into the hallway. "Don't come looking for me in the classroom," she whispered, clearly embarrassed, but her expression wasn't truly angry, more like a playful pout. After a moment, she asked, "Have you eaten breakfast yet? If you're offering, boss, I can definitely make some room. After all, you pay so well, I'm practically at your beck and call." Michael Thompson said with a completely straight face. "You're never serious." Olivia Sullivan retorted, annoyed. "So, what'd you come here for?" "Actually, Michael Thompson started to explain, but changed his mind mid-sentence. "Well, didn't I make you angry yesterday? So I can see if my big boss has cooled down yet." Unexpectedly, something in that sentence seemed to set Olivia Sullivan off. The hint of a smile vanished, and her expression instantly turned cold. "If there's nothing else, I'm going back inside." With that, Olivia Sullivan turned and went back into the classroom, leaving Michael Thompson standing outside, completely bewildered. High school Olivia. Was she always this moody? Was her period lasting this long? Hadn't it passed yet? Seeing Olivia come back in, Claire Evans eagerly started gossiping. "What happened? What did your Michael Thompson want?" "What do you mean, my Michael? He has nothing to do with me." Olivia Sullivan plopped back in her seat, fuming. "Claire, don't say things like that next time. He wasn't even here to see me." Apparently, she had heard Michael Thompson's thoughts and knew he hadn't come looking for her at all, but for Jake Wilson. And he was actually thinking about not wanting to be associated with me at school. That's outrageous. Clearly, the young woman had conveniently forgotten that just yesterday, she herself had resolved not to date in high school and to keep her distance from Michael Thompson at school to stop any further misunderstandings among their classmates. Michael Thompson needed to find Jake Wilson mainly because he wanted to ask Jake to go downtown with him over the weekend to buy a phone and a computer. Now that he had money, these are the first two things he needed to get. He sought out Jake for two reasons. First, Jake's uncle owned an electronics store in the city's computer mall, meaning he could get a good discount. Second, he needed to coordinate their story with Jake, so if his mom found out, he could claim Jake had lent him the items. Saturday arrived quickly. In the afternoon, Jake Wilson and Michael Thompson went to the computer mall and bought the phone and computer. The phone was a new Nokia smartphone, costing around $3,000. As for the computer, Michael Thompson didn't buy a desktop. He opted for a laptop, spending over $8,000. On their way out, Jake Wilson kept complaining that for the money spent on the laptop, he could have bought a desktop with significantly better performance for the same price. But Michael Thompson had no choice. How could he possibly get a desktop computer in a house? Margaret Thompson would turn into Mrs. Thompson, ready with a needle, and wouldn't rest until she interrogated him about where the money came from. He couldn't exactly say he'd skillfully extracted it from a little rich girl's pocket, could he? If he did that, Jake Wilson could probably expect an invitation to the Thompson family funeral banquet the very next day. After Michael Thompson got a SIM card from the mobile carrier store, it was dinner time, so he treated Jake Wilson to a meal at a diner. "Jake, you know what to say if anyone asks, right?" Yeah, I lent them to you." Jake Wilson replied nonchalantly, grabbing a beer bottle and popping the cap off with his teeth. He poured some into a disposable cup for himself, then looked at Michael Thompson. "I'm having beer, and you're drinking Horizon organic milk? It's freezing out. You'll freeze your ass off, idiot." Michael Thompson retorted, taking another sip of his Horizon organic milk. Jake Wilson didn't get mad, just chuckled and drank his beer. "Seriously, Michael," he asked curiously, "where'd you get this money?" Michael Thompson glanced at him. "Want the truth or a lie?" Jake Wilson's eyes widened. "The truth, obviously. A woman gave it to me." Jake Wilson nearly sprayed Michael Thompson's face with beer. Michael Thompson grabbed a napkin and wiped the table in disgust. "Seriously? Have some hygiene." Jake Wilson stared, incredulous. "Michael, if you're in trouble, you can tell me, man. You didn't have to sell your body, did you? How old was she?" "A 16-year-old beauty rolling in dough." "Michael, if you're just messing with me like this, don't expect me to keep your secret. See? Nobody believes the truth these days." Michael Thompson sighed. "Okay, fine, I was kidding. I knew it." Jake Wilson breathed a sigh of relief and took another drink of beer. "Actually, I sold a kidney. PFF-MMPH. This time, Michael Thompson was ready. He quickly clamped a hand over Jake's mouth, managing to stifle the impending spray. Jake Wilson angrily pushed his hand away. What is it really? If you don't tell me, I'm telling Aunt Margaret Thompson. I want it on a scratch-off. Michael Thompson's expression turned serious. If you don't believe me this time, there's nothing I can do, he emphasized. Seeing how serious he looked, Jake Wilson stared for a moment, then exclaimed, "Seriously? How much did you win?" "Pretty much gone after buying this stuff." "Holy crap, that's still over $10,000. Jake Wilson thought for a second. Wait a minute. Do scratch-offs even have prizes over $10,000? Especially such an exact amount. You have to pay taxes. Oh, right. Jake Wilson quickly dropped his suspicions and started excitedly pestering Michael Thompson about which lottery retailer he bought it from, hoping to catch some leftover luck himself, maybe even win enough for a new computer. Michael Thompson fed him some nonsense, then deliberately brought up Emily Thompson, successfully diverting the conversation away from the lottery winnings. On Sunday, Emily Thompson was sitting on her bed in her room, holding her younger cousin, watching Michael Thompson standing on a desk fiddling with a router. "Michael, I think the internet's fine. Do we really need a new router? Yours is just a wire connection. This one has Wi-Fi, so phones can connect too. Makes it easier to use the internet at home." Michael Thompson swapped in a new router he'd bought for over $200. Because of the wiring in Emily Thompson's house, the phone line wasn't long enough, so the router had to be placed on top of the cabinet, almost touching the ceiling. Michael Thompson had to stand on the desk to do the high-altitude work, breaking a sweat in the process. Emily Thompson asked puzzledly, "But I don't have a cell phone. Mom and Dad only use theirs for calls. They never even use up the free data included in their monthly plan." "Doesn't matter. Anyway, your house is the only one with a computer around here. It'd be a waste not to install the router here, and it's not like it cost you anything." Michael Thompson lied to Emily Thompson, saying he'd won the router in a raffle during a store promotion when he and Jake Wilson were shopping at the computer mall yesterday. Emily Thompson, always thrilled by a freebie, beamed when she heard it was free, her eyes curving into crescents. "Oh, right. Well, go ahead and install it then," she said with a smile. "It's all installed now. Check if the internet's working." As Michael Thompson turned on the computer and waited for it to boot up, Emily Thompson was called downstairs by Aunt Maggie, leaving the younger cousin in his care. After confirming the computer was working fine, Michael Thompson thought for a moment and sent a message to Olivia Sullivan via Messenger. "Bought a phone. My number is 555 XXX XXXX. Call me if you need anything." He had already given the number for his new phone to Jake Wilson. Besides him, Olivia Sullivan was the only other person he'd notified. Olivia Sullivan didn't reply immediately. Her profile picture was grayed out, so she was probably offline. Michael Thompson didn't mind. As he was about to shut down the computer, he noticed the younger cousin leaning against his leg, staring up at him with wide, dark eyes. He smiled and reached down to pick the cousin up. "Come here, let big brother hold you." But unexpectedly, the younger cousin patted away on bare little feet, saying, "No, big brother's smelly." The expression on Michael Thompson's face turned instantly awkward, a mix of amusement and embarrassment. After getting home and taking a shower, Michael Thompson eagerly went back to his room and took the new laptop out of his backpack. Although the laptop came with a free mouse, Michael Thompson wasn't very comfortable using it. "Guess I need to buy some peripherals. But this small desk doesn't seem big enough. Why did Mom buy such a huge bed? There's no room left for a proper desk." Michael Thompson had been bummed about this for a while, but there was no point mentioning it to his mom. She'd just retort, "Find yourself a wife sooner, then the bed won't be wasted." Michael Thompson thought about Olivia Sullivan's figure and reckoned that with a bed this size, he could probably fit 2 more wives without it being crowded. Of course, he'd only say that out loud if he'd completely lost his mind. After turning on the computer, Michael Thompson connected to the Wi-Fi easily enough, but the signal was definitely weak. Try to open a web page or watch a video involved a long buffering time. It couldn't be helped. Although his house and Emily's were only separated by a wall, the distance to the router was still a bit far. Michael Thompson pondered how he could run an Ethernet cable to his room without being discovered. Just as he was thinking about it, there was a furtive knock at the door. Michael Thompson quickly shoved the laptop under his covers and climbed out of bed. Coming. It was Robert Thompson. Around this time, every evening was when Michael Thompson had his lessons with his dad. Tonight was no exception. Father and son crept down to the first-floor living room and turned on a small lamp. Robert Thompson whispered, "Did you bring the item?" "Got it," Michael Thompson whispered back. "Inspect the goods. Payment upon delivery." Robert Thompson gave him a flick on the head. "I'm teaching you, and you're asking me for money? Shouldn't you be paying tuition?" Michael Thompson rubbed his head, exasperated. "Dad, I was just playing along with the mood. Keep it down. Your mom's not sound asleep yet. Don't wake her." Got it, got it. Michael Thompson took a small square seal out of his pocket and handed it to Robert Thompson. Robert Thompson took the seal, turned it over to look at the carving, and though his face didn't show it, he was inwardly surprised. His son's talent for carving was progressing faster than he had imagined. Just a few days ago, he barely knew how to hold the carving knife properly, but now, the characters he carved already looked quite decent, comparable to an apprentice with 2 years of training. Carving, much like calligraphy, starts with the basics like lettering. Anyone can pick up a brush, but it takes a master to truly excel. It's easy to start, but mastery is another story. Robert Thompson was surprised by how quickly his son, Michael, was picking it up much faster than he had when he first started. Could his son actually have a knack for this? The thought sparked something in Robert. He'd initially assumed Michael was just curious, figuring he'd drop it once the novelty wore off, so he hadn't planned on serious training. After all, his mother, Margaret Thompson, had always pushed for Michael to go to college, maybe stay in a big city, or get a secure government job in the civil service. She clearly didn't want him following in his father's footsteps, enduring the hardships of the craft. Robert actually made good money from his work, but as the saying goes, the grass is always greener. People outside a trade rarely understand its difficulties and imagine other jobs are easier. Margaret was exactly like that. She'd rather see Michael earning a modest salary as a civil servant than inhaling stone dust in a workshop. Sitting in an air-conditioned office, drinking tea, reading the paper, wasn't that the life? Plus, government jobs came with good benefits, job security, and a 401k plan. So, Margaret was firmly against Michael learning carving. Robert had initially sided with his wife, but seeing Michael's genuine talent changed his perspective. You couldn't just let talent like that go to waste. And Michael did have talent. He'd even managed to make a name for himself in the art world just by teaching himself, which spoke volumes about his artistic abilities. While he was certainly a beginner when it came to carving, he also had the systematic dream training system. 8 hours of sleep translated into 80 hours of learning time for him. In these dream lessons, guided by the system's expert instruction, Michael could focus entirely without any distractions. How could his efficiency possibly compare to anyone else's? Excellent guidance, exceptional talent, and sheer time invested, it all added up to Michael progressing by leaps and bounds. He was a genius. Not bad. Though Robert was thrilled inside, he kept his expression calm, even making the not bad sound a little dismissive. Can't let the boy get a big head. Michael didn't mind, asking with a grin, "So, Dad, what's on the agenda today?" "Still lettering?" "Yeah, gotta build the foundation first," Robert nodded. "But I need to tell you something. Starting tomorrow, we're taking a break. Your mom mentioned your final exams are coming up soon. You need to focus on studying. Learning this is fine, but if your schoolwork slips, you can expect to be grounded." Michael's face froze. Studying. He'd been so absorbed in carving lately, spending all his dream training time on it, that he hadn't reviewed any of his high school material. He'd forgotten most of it already. Forget staying in the top 5 of the honors class. He'd be lucky to scrape by with average grades in the art program at this rate. Suddenly, something clicked. Mom said, "Mom knows I'm learning stone carving from you." "Yeah, she knows. Couldn't keep it a secret forever." "Then why have we been sneaking around, whispering every day?" Robert paused. "It's late at night. Isn't it good to be quiet?" "Dad, if you didn't think of an excuse, just say so. Are you going to learn or not? If not, I'm going back to sleep." Learning. Don't get ticked off." Time flew by. Michael buckled down, tuning out the world to focus solely on his studies, or rather, on cramming high school knowledge via his dream training. This primarily manifested as sleeping through every actual class, often leaving a puddle of drool on his desk. His deskmate, Travis Miller, could only stare dumbfounded. Though Michael sat right beside him, arm to arm, it felt like he was operating in a completely different time zone. The students in the art studio program even gave Michael a new nickname, Dream Boy, a play on Sleeping Beauty. Ms. Evans frequently hauled Michael to her office by the ear for this, but his attitude was always one of sincere apologies, zero intention of changing. He couldn't help it. He was desperate. Finals were looming, and to avoid being grounded, he had to cram in every possible second of dream training. While Michael was racing against the clock, Olivia Sullivan was feeling down. She was starting to think Michael Thompson was a total jerk. Ever since she'd given him that card, he hadn't come looking for her once. The reality of it stung. Olivia began to question herself. Did he actually like her? Or just her money? Was she really that unappealing? Okay, maybe she was a little underdeveloped in some areas, but her face was pretty, right? Still, she couldn't bring herself to initiate contact, just waited anxiously, but he never even passed by the door of Honors Class A. As her mood sank, her best friend, Claire Evans, immediately picked up on it. Claire hadn't quite dared to broach the subject with Olivia recently, but she couldn't just leave her friend suffering. So, she started helping Olivia by trash-talking Michael. What a love him and leave him type. Total hit it and quit it move. Ugh, what a player. He should just drop dead, that jerk. She even tried to convince Olivia to hang a banner outside Michael's classroom, building reading. Player Michael Thompson, you owe me. Each outburst made Olivia blush furiously and clamp a hand over Claire's mouth, protesting. Okay. There's nothing going on between us, and he's not that bad. But Claire wasn't just teasing. She was also playing wingwoman. For instance, dropping hints to the scumbag's good friend, Jake Wilson. Hey Jake, Claire said, deliberately finding him one day. Michael hasn't come by your class to hang out lately, has he? Jake Wilson blinked. Huh, no. Michael came over to my place yesterday to shoot pool. I mean here, in class, Claire clarified. Is he trying to distance himself from you at school? Maybe he doesn't want people knowing you guys are friends. As she spoke, she subtly gestured with her chin towards Olivia. She was talking to Jake, but the message wasn't really for him. Claire had a real knack for indirect digs. 20 years from now, she'd be a master of public arguments. Jake finally caught on, an understanding smile spreading across his face. He gave an okay sign and deliberately raised his voice. You know, now that you mention it, you're right. That's pretty lousy, not treating me like a real friend. No way. I'm dragging him over here today, no matter what. Olivia, sitting near the front, heard every word loud and clear. She felt a mix of embarrassment and irritation, knowing perfectly well they were talking loudly for her benefit. But ultimately, she did nothing, instead covering her ears in a futile attempt to block it out, pretending to focus intently on memorizing her notes. It was a kind of silent consent. Michael, my man, Jake began when he found him, hands clasped behind his back in a show of faux maturity, his voice laced with mock sorrow. I gotta say, you really don't understand girls. Michael was completely baffled. What are you talking about? Do you have any idea how many couples drift apart because they grow distant? Jake lamented, putting on the airs of a seasoned veteran of love. Relationships need constant maintenance, you know? If Michael hadn't known for a fact that Jake was still completely inexperienced, he might have actually fallen for the act. Seriously, what the hell is wrong with you today? Did you take the wrong pills or something? Michael shot back. Travis Miller sidled over, grinning. Looks like Dream Boy's got some relationship drama. Michael waved him away dismissively like a fly. Get lost, Travis. This doesn't concern you. I'm focused on my studies. Haven't you heard? There's beauty in books. Knowledge is my wife now. Oh yeah, Travis retorted. Is there a single textbook you own that isn't soaked in drool? Hey, when you marry a wife, you gotta kiss her, right? It's called deep affection. Let's see. English, math, science. Wow, quite the hair you've got there, Dream Boy. Damn right. Michael figured Jake was just shooting the breeze and didn't think much of it, casually bantering back and forth with Travis. Just then, a girl with glasses and a round face walked up to Michael's desk, tapped it, and said cheerfully, Dream Boy, time a hand in your homework. Here, Michael said, handing it over. You may withdraw, servant girl. The round-faced girl gave him a light, playful punch on the arm before taking the papers and walking off. Jake listened to the exchange, completely stunned. Michael just transferred into this class a few days ago, right? And they're already calling him Dream Boy. He scratched his head, confused, and asked Travis, Hey Travis, why do you guys call Michael Dream Boy? Travis burst into laughter. Ha ha. Oh man, you have no idea. Michael, mortified, quickly cut Travis off before he could explain. He cleared his throat. Jake, seriously, did you come here for something or not? Lunch break's almost over. Jake slapped his forehead, finally remembering his mission. He grabbed Michael's arm and started pulling him towards the door. Come on, let's go. You're coming back to Class A with me. Wait, why? I was going to take a nap. Michael protested. Travis immediately started hooting. Dream Boy's going off to dreamland. The surrounding students erupted in laughter. Michael shot them all the middle finger before planting a light kick on Jake's backside. Hurry up. If you have something to say, spit it out. Jake rubbed his butt. Dude, do you realize Claire Evans is about to hang a banner downstairs from your classroom? Michael froze. Hang a banner? What kind of banner? A love confession. Love confession my ass. Jake retorted. You've already landed the school beauty, Olivia Sullivan. Are you trying to score Claire too? Greedy much? The day Claire actually hangs that player Michael Thompson, you owe me, banner, I'll be right beside her, shouting into a megaphone. Michael's mind was still trying to catch up. Wait, hold on. What school beauty? Olivia Sullivan, obviously. How long has it been since you even went to see her? No wonder her eyes have been all red like a rabbit's the past couple of days. I wouldn't have even known if Claire hadn't told me. When didn't I tell you? Michael glanced around and saw a ring of classmates eagerly eavesdropping. His expression immediately soured, and he dragged Jake out of the classroom. Once they were in the hallway, he hissed, "Didn't I tell you Olivia and I are not dating?" Of course, Michael wanted to see Olivia, but he didn't have a good excuse, especially since they weren't actually dating. Go give her a progress report on the project? He hadn't even started yet, so there was nothing to report. Plus, he really was swamped with studying and couldn't spare the time. And Olivia? She was getting for the top spot in their year. She'd be studying even harder for finals. Showing up now to try and be charming would probably just annoy her, like trying to flatter someone at the worst possible moment. It might even make her genuinely dislike him. On top of that, Michael always felt Olivia was a bit unpredictable around him. One minute they'd be talking normally, the next she'd inexplicably get upset. He was starting to get confused about where he actually stood with her. Sometimes he even wondered if he'd misidentified his future wife. The gorgeous girl from his memories hadn't been like this. What if approaching her now, right before finals, just made things worse? If the wife he'd finally found slipped through his fingers, who would be to blame? Jake couldn't possibly guess all of Michael's complex anxieties. All he remembered was that incident with the drinks, how Olivia had quietly asked only Michael if he was thirsty, and how she'd ended up buying plain water for Jake, but a vitamin drink for Michael. If that didn't scream something's going on, what did? It felt like they were practically force-feeding him their public displays of affection. But now, Michael looked genuinely unwilling to go see Olivia in Class A, and he was adamantly denying they were dating. They'd been friends since they were toddlers. Jake felt he knew Michael well enough to tell when he was serious versus joking around. And this time, Michael seemed dead serious. Jake couldn't help asking again, "So you're really not dating Livy Sullivan?" "Already told you no. What's wrong with you? Shouldn't you be focusing on studying hard and making something of yourself instead of having your head filled with teenage hormones?" Michael retorted, turning the tables and lecturing Jake. "Seriously? You're not. One more time, and I'm punching you." Seeing how insistent Michael was, a new possibility dawned on Jake. Could it be Olivia likes Michael, but he doesn't like her back? Is it one-sided? It actually seemed plausible. Michael had always gone for, well, a very specific curvy type, and he used to gossip with Jake about various girls in other classes, but Jake couldn't recall him ever mentioning Olivia before. Plus, Michael had only really started interacting with Olivia right before he transferred classes. They'd barely exchanged a word before that. But Olivia was gorgeous, pursued by countless guys. Why would she fall for Michael? Wait, could it be because of that biblical sacrifice incident? Yes, that had to be it. Hey, what are you spacing out about? Michael clapped Jake hard on the shoulder, snapping him out of his thoughts. Jake blinked, muttering, "Oh man, this is bad." Then, without another word, he turned and hurried off, leaving Michael standing there utterly perplexed. What the hell was that all about? Michael shook his head, resigned, and headed back into his classroom. The moment he walked in, the round-faced girl with glasses who'd collected his homework earlier called out, Well, look who's back. The great lover boy returns." Michael just stood there speechless as the classroom filled with laughter. For a fleeting moment, he seriously considered transferring classes again. Meanwhile, Claire Evans was waiting by the door of Class A. When she saw Jake return alone, she glanced past him. "I sent you to get Michael. Where is he?" Jake hesitated, looking conflicted. "Claire," he finally said, gently taking her arm and pulling her away from the doorway. "I need to talk to you about something." "What's going on?" Claire asked, following him with a puzzled expression. Inside the classroom, Olivia Sullivan hadn't moved from her seat, but her eyes had been darting towards the hallway. When she saw Jake come back without Michael, she stared blankly for a second before dropping her gaze back to the notes on her desk. She couldn't focus on a single word. An unmistakable wave of disappointment washed over her. "What do you want?" Claire Evans felt a sudden pang of panic as Jake Wilson pulled her into the stairwell landing. Looking around, she saw they were completely alone. She immediately crossed her arms defensively. "Jake Wilson," she said warily, "if you're thinking of asking me out, lose about 80 or 100 pounds first." Jake Wilson hadn't been sure how to start, but hearing Claire's words nearly made him snort in disbelief. "Are you crazy? I'd sooner ask out a dog than you gossip." Claire's eyebrows shot up, and she lunged like she was going to grab Jake Wilson's ear. "Who are you calling gossip?" Okay. I need to talk to you about something serious." Seeing her flare up, Jake immediately backed down. Before she could really lose it, he spoke quickly. "You're sure Olivia Sullivan likes Michael, right?" "Of course. Haven't you seen how she's been the past couple of days? But are you sure Michael likes her? Jake Wilson paused for a moment. When I went to get Michael Thompson from his class today, he really didn't want to go see Olivia Sullivan. And he specifically stressed, multiple times, that he wasn't dating her. He didn't look like he was lying. Jake Wilson's words made Claire Evans pause. Why wouldn't Michael Thompson like Olivia Sullivan? She blurted out instinctively. Yeah, why wouldn't he? Looks-wise, you couldn't find anyone prettier than Olivia Sullivan in all of Oakwood High School. Family-wise, anyone with any sense around Green Valley knew the Sullivan family's reputation. Academically, she was consistently in the top 5 of their year. Getting into an Ivy League university was practically guaranteed, and other top universities were definitely within reach. Personality-wise, she couldn't be cuter. A girl like that likes Michael Thompson. Shouldn't he be thanking his lucky stars? How could he possibly be picky? Then look at Michael Thompson. Okay, he wasn't bad. Pretty tall, kind of handsome, grades were decent, family was well off enough. But that just made him a decent catch in Pine Ridge County. He was completely out of Olivia Sullivan's league. Claire Evans felt like she considered it from every angle, practical or otherwise. There's just no way Michael Thompson would turn down Olivia Sullivan. If anything, it was weirder that Olivia Sullivan liked Michael Thompson in the first place. Why? Jake Wilson scratched his head, glancing sideways at Claire Evans a few times. He hesitated, then cupped his hands in front of his chest, making a rounded shape. Because of this, get it? Claire Evans understood instantly. She'd used that exact gesture to tease Olivia Sullivan about Michael Thompson before. Blushing, she sputtered, "You guys are all pervs." Jake Wilson objected. "Hey, insult Michael Thompson all you want, but leave me out of it. I appreciate all kinds." Player. Yeah, play hey. Claire Evans gave him a strange look. The second player was directed at you. This felt like a huge insult to Jake Wilson, who had never even had a girlfriend. Claire Evans sighed softly. Still, speaking of that, Olivia Sullivan is, well, some girls are like that, you know? Late bloomers or whatever. Her voice trailed off, clearly unconvinced even by her own words. Jake Wilson stated firmly, "Michael Thompson and I have known each other since we were in diapers. I know exactly what his preferences are. I'm not wrong about this. True, I did overhear you two whispering about that girl in the class next door. Olivia Sullivan is great, yeah, but she's basically the exact opposite of Michael Thompson's type. So it kind of makes sense he wouldn't be into her. True, different strokes for different folks." They went back and forth like a comedy duo, and before they knew it, they talked themselves into deciding that Michael Thompson definitely didn't like Olivia Sullivan. Claire Evans thought back. She'd only ever really probed her best friend, sensing Olivia Sullivan's feelings for Michael Thompson. She'd never actually tried to figure out what Michael thought of Olivia. After all, she and Michael Thompson weren't exactly close, even though they were classmates. What now? Had she totally screwed over her best friend? For the past few days, the news about Olivia Sullivan and Michael Thompson dating had spread through the class like wildfire. And as for who let the gossip queen know, well, she knew exactly who that was. Claire Evans frowned. But that doesn't make sense either. I saw Michael Thompson get into Olivia Sullivan's car. If he doesn't like her, why would he get in her car? Jake Wilson looked puzzled. Michael Thompson hadn't mentioned anything about that to him. Maybe it was just a ride, he guessed. Twice. That I know of. Claire Evans's eyes lit up as if she'd found a loophole. Ignoring Jake Wilson, she jogged back in the classroom. "Olivia, can I ask you something?" During class, Claire Evans secretively passed a small note to Olivia Sullivan. By this time, Olivia Sullivan had composed herself and looked at the note her deskmate passed her. NGH. Michael Thompson was perched on his chair, biting his finger, looking deeply troubled. It was already evening. The bell dismissing the last afternoon class had just rung. Travis Miller was packing his bag when he saw Michael Thompson still biting his finger. He chuckled. "You look like you're seriously constipated." "Pretty much. That's exactly how I feel right now, like I'm stuck, can't push it out, can't pull it back." "Dude, stop describing it. I was just about to get dinner. Now, I've got this mental image." Travis Miller cursed under his breath, then asked, "Yo, young master, want to go grab a bite off campus?" But Michael Thompson suddenly slapped his desk and jumped down from his chair, as if he'd just figured something out. Only an idiot would eat dinner with another dude. He straightened his jacket, popped the collar, and flashed a confident, handsome grin. "I'm going on a date." Travis Miller was taken aback by this sudden burst of confidence. He stared, stunned, as Michael Thompson swaggered out the back door of the classroom, then slapped his own hand. He's got a point. He immediately pulled out his phone and called his girlfriend. "Hey babe, want to get dinner tonight?" Oakwood High School had an open campus plaza. Students could choose freely between eating in the school cafeteria or at the plaza, A few whose homes were right near the plaza would just go home to eat. Although Michael Thompson was a day student, he usually ate both lunch and dinner at school. And he knew Olivia Sullivan did the same. Her house was downtown, over an hour's drive away, so naturally, she wouldn't spend all that time going home just for dinner. Compared to going home, Olivia Sullivan preferred staying at school too. It's 5:40 now. The last class ended at 5:10. To avoid the lines, Olivia Sullivan usually stays in the classroom for about 20 minutes, reading or doing homework. It takes time to walk from the classroom to the cafeteria, and she eats pretty slowly. She should still be eating in the cafeteria right now. When Michael Thompson got to the cafeteria, he didn't rush to the food counter. He scanned the room and quickly spotted Olivia Sullivan eating in a corner. A smile spread across his face. "Found you." Olivia Sullivan wasn't enjoying her lunch today. You could tell by the glum look on her face. She'd barely touched her food, mostly just stabbing at her rice with her chopsticks as if jabbing someone's cheek, muttering under her breath with each poke. Usually, Claire Evans would eat lunch with her in the cafeteria, but today Claire had mysteriously disappeared with Jake Wilson right after class, leaving Olivia wondering what they were up to. So, Olivia Sullivan had to come to the cafeteria all alone. Just as she was taking out her frustration on the rice, she suddenly noticed someone sit down across from her. Olivia Sullivan's hand froze. She didn't dare look up, but mustered her courage and stammered, "This seat's taken. My friend is coming." This sort of thing always happened to her. Normally, Claire Evans would fiercely chase people away for her. But now, alone, she felt flustered and helpless. Unexpectedly, the person chuckled and said, "Oh, really? Should I leave then?" That familiar voice. Olivia Sullivan's eyes widened instantly. Looking up, she saw Michael Thompson's teasing smile. She pouted, turned her head away, and snapped fiercely, "Go on, get out of here. I don't want to see you." "But there are no other seats," he replied. "Come on, classmate, help me out here. Can I just squeeze in?" In reality, the cafeteria wasn't very crowded at this time, and the seats next to Olivia were empty. But Olivia Sullivan chose to ignore them, relenting slightly and playing along. Fine, you can sit there. But if my friend comes, you have to give up the spot." "Alrighty then. You're so nice, classmate. What homeroom are you in?" Michael Thompson said with a grin, pretending they'd just met. "I'm not telling you. Even if I did, you wouldn't come over." Her response seemed to genuinely surprise Michael Thompson this time. He wasn't pretending. Michael Thompson hesitated, then said slowly, "Jake Wilson came looking for me in my class today. Said you wanted to see me. I thought it was just the guys messing around again. You didn't actually." It was just them messing around. Olivia realized her earlier comment might have given Michael the wrong idea and quickly denied it. "We want to see you. All you do is annoy me." Michael Thompson laughed too. Right. Boss Sullivan did make me put in the contract that annoying the boss is grounds for a pay cut." He continued in an exaggerated tone. "So I thought, if you get mad every time I see you, wouldn't I end up owing you money? Eventually, I might even have to offer up these 100-odd pounds of mine. What a bad deal. So, I figure it's better not to see the boss at all. Pretty smart, huh?" Seeing his smug, self-congratulatory expression, Olivia Sullivan really wanted to punch him to reward his brilliant idea. But being closer, she could hear Michael Thompson's thoughts more clearly. Damn it, so it was them. That son of a bitch, Jake Wilson, believing whatever the guys say and joining in the teasing. "I'm gonna kick his ass when I get back. Good thing I'm smart enough to stage a chance encounter during lunch. If I'd actually been dumb enough to follow him to honors class, the whole class would know my intentions are obvious. Then I'd be screwed either way, stuck explaining myself. I haven't seen her in days, either. Of course I miss her. He misses me too?" Olivia Sullivan blushed, lowering her head shyly. She pursed her lips modestly, but couldn't completely hide the flicker of joy in her eyes. But finals are next week. She's probably focused on studying, aiming for first place. If I go bother her now, I'm just asking for trouble. Can't risk lowering her opinion of me. Better not disturb her for now. Olivia Sullivan's face flushed even redder, this time with shame. She hadn't studied much the past couple of days. Her mind was too full of random distractions to focus. But the reason Michael isn't seeking me out is because he doesn't want to disturb my studies. She secretly glanced at Michael Thompson. He was focused on eating, head down, not saying anything. Looking at his plate, she saw only a small scoop of rice and some greens. No meat at all. Olivia Sullivan looked down at her own tray. 2 meat dishes and 1 vegetable. She gently kicked Michael Thompson's shin under the table. Michael Thompson looked up at her, puzzled. "What?" Olivia Sullivan pointed with her chopsticks to the untouched meatloaf on her tray. "I can't finish this, but my grandpa always taught me not to waste food." Seeing no reaction from him, she huffed in mock annoyance. "What a blockhead. and transferred the meatloaf to his plate. "You eat it for me." Michael Thompson stared at the meatloaf on his plate, looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, he forced a smile. "Wow, Boss Sullivan, so considerate. Giving me extra rations. She doesn't think I only got vegetables because I'm broke, right? That's why she's sharing her food. No way. I just hit the jackpot. I'm newly rich. Why would I eat this crappy cafeteria food? Obviously, I'm saving room to eat somewhere nice later." Hearing his true thoughts made Olivia Sullivan's hand freeze midair. She had thought Michael might actually be touched, but instead, he was complaining. "That jerk Michael, using the money I invested to go splurge on fancy food?" Olivia Sullivan suddenly felt like snatching the meatloaf back, even though Michael had already taken a bite and gotten his saliva on it. Michael Thompson ate the meatloaf, picking at his rice slowly like he was counting beans, still thinking. Pretty girl probably hates the rumors going around class already. She doesn't want to date in high school. I shouldn't push my luck. Better take it slow, no rush. Just like last time, wait until sophomore year of college. Sophomore year. Olivia Sullivan stared at him, wide-eyed. "Don't take it slow. Graduation is fine." She kicked Michael Thompson's foot again, a bit harder this time. When he looked over in surprise, she sniffed lightly and muttered, "Pay cut." "Huh? What?" Leaving the cafeteria, Michael Thompson and Olivia Sullivan walked back towards their classrooms together. Because the art studio program was in Building 8, the furthest one on campus, Michael Thompson's route back to his classroom happened to pass Building 2, where the sophomores were, so he walked Olivia Sullivan to the entrance. Just before they reached her building, Olivia Sullivan suddenly stopped. Fiddling with the hem of her skirt, she said nervously, "Why you have to come report on your work from now on? I'm the boss. I need to know where my money is going." "Nope. Every time I come, I get a pay cut." Michael Thompson was still annoyed about earlier. Although the pay cut talk was just a joke between them, Olivia wasn't actually paying him, so there was nothing to deduct. Michael was still irritated. They'd agreed. Annoy her once, get a pay cut. But had he annoyed her just now? He was just eating quietly, not even talking. She got mad over that. He wasn't going to put up with it. Not even if she was his future wife. Not even if she was his future wife. Michael Thompson considered himself a man with principles, a guy with some pride. Besides, at this rate, he didn't think things would ever work out between them. But just as that thought crossed his mind, Michael felt someone suddenly grab his sleeve tightly. He looked down at Olivia Sullivan beside him and saw her anxiously clutching his sleeve, looking up at him pitifully, like she was trying hard not to cry. Seeing her like that, all his irritation vanished. His supposedly firm principles were about to be bent again. Michael Thompson sighed, his voice softening with a mix of resignation and compromise. Yes, you're the boss. How about once a week?" Olivia Sullivan kept her head down, shyly holding up one finger. Once a day. While things were looking up for Michael Thompson and Olivia Sullivan, others were drowning in misery. In an empty classroom next to honors class, Jake Wilson sat on a chair, while Claire Evans perched on the desk opposite him. They both sighed. Even their sighs were in sync. "Fatty, looks like you were right," Claire Evans said helplessly. "Michael Thompson actually saved Olivia's grandpa. I wouldn't have believed it if Olivia Sullivan hadn't told me herself." She'd spent the afternoon subtly probing Olivia Sullivan, initially just curious why her best friend had suddenly gotten so close to Michael Thompson. But her questions unearthed something that left her reeling. Michael Thompson had saved Olivia Sullivan's grandfather. As Olivia Sullivan's best friend, Claire Evans rarely heard her talk about family, with the notable exception of her grandfather, whom Olivia had mentioned a few times. It was obvious their bond must be strong. Michael Thompson had saved her grandpa. No wonder Olivia Sullivan had warmed up to him. Claire Evans figured she'd discovered the catalyst for Olivia's feelings toward Michael Thompson. Jake Wilson added gloomily, "And Michael dealt with some loan sharks for Olivia Sullivan, too. You should have seen it. If I were a girl, I'd fall for him, too." He didn't know the guy bothering Olivia Sullivan that day was her actual brother. He'd assumed it was just some punk hanging around the school plaza. They exchanged a glance, then lowered their heads and sighed in unison once more. In their minds, things suddenly seemed clear. Olivia Sullivan had an unrequited crush on Michael Thompson. Claire Evans, however, stood firm, ready to support her best friend's budding romance. "Fatty, we have to help Olivia." "Hold on. Why am I sighing along with this?" Jake Wilson suddenly realized whose side he was on. Right, why was he sighing? He wasn't on Team Livy Sullivan. He was definitely Team Michael Thompson. Since Michael Thompson didn't like Livy Sullivan, why should he, Jake Wilson, get mixed up in it? It wasn't like he and Olivia Sullivan were that close. With that thought, Jake Wilson immediately shook his head like a rattle. "Nope, not helping." Smack. Claire Evans slammed her hand flat on the desk, leaning forward with her eyebrows knitted fiercely and her other hand on her hip. Are you helping or not? Claire Evans had a reputation in class for being fiery. She never backed down from an argument, and it wouldn't have been out of character for her to roll up her sleeves and start throwing punches if truly provoked. Jake Wilson, being the milder sort, gulped silently at her ferocity. But he was still loyal. He turned his face away. I, Jake Wilson, am a man of honor. When navigating the world, the most important thing is loyalty. I'll buy you dinner. Anything under $10, your choice. Jake Wilson was silent for a moment, still clinging to his principles. Don't try to tempt me with money. I'm really not that kind of person. Michael is my best friend. And a milk tea, Claire Evans added through clenched teeth, glaring at him. Don't test me, she threatened. Jake Wilson fell silent again, then stood up. Make it a large. After the evening's self-study session ended, Olivia Sullivan lingered at her desk. Claire Evans, however, packed her things the instant the bell rang, ready to head back to the dorm. She lived too far away to commute daily, so she stayed in the dorm during the week and only went home on weekends. On her way out, she glanced at Olivia Sullivan, still scribbling away at her desk. Olivia, aren't you heading out? She asked curiously. Oh, you go on ahead, Olivia Sullivan said, composing her expression. I'm halfway through this last problem. I want to finish it before I go. She studiously scribbled random formulas onto her scratch paper. Claire Evans didn't give it a second thought. Grabbing her bag, she headed out of the classroom. All right, see you tomorrow then. Okay, see you tomorrow. Olivia Sullivan waved goodbye to Claire Evans, then sat zoning out at her desk for a while longer. Only when the classroom was completely empty did she silently pack her things, sling her bag over her shoulder, switch off all the lights, and finally leave. The academic building was deserted now. Lights were off in most classrooms, and the hallways were practically empty. Olivia Sullivan reached the first floor. Standing on tiptoe at the exit, she scanned the area for a moment before finally spotting Michael Thompson sitting on the edge of a planter, yawning. The anxious expression that had been on her face instantly gave way to a happy smile. Michael Thompson noticed Olivia Sullivan standing at the building entrance as well. He stood up and walked toward her, already complaining. What took you so long? Do you have any idea how cold it is? I'm freezing out here. Even old Granddad wasn't this good at working people to the bone. Calling you Sullivan the Skinner is no exaggeration. Ultimately, he hadn't been able to refuse Olivia Sullivan's demanding once-a-day request, although he mentally berated himself. Michael Thompson, you're a big, strong guy. How could you be so whipped? His body had dutifully shown up to wait for her after class. Neither of them wanted the existing rumors about them to spread further, so they had simply agreed to talk during the walk from the academic building to the school plaza after the evening session ended. Listening to his complaints, Olivia Sullivan puffed out her cheeks and mumbled, "It was too crowded right after class let out. I had to wait in the classroom for a long time too. Next time, it's your turn to wait for me." Trying to get out of it? Let me see. What exactly is that thick skin of yours made of? On the tree-lined campus path, the only sounds were Michael Thompson's occasional jokes and Olivia Sullivan's stifled giggles. For a moment, even the winter night's wind seemed tinged with warmth. At the school plaza, Michael Thompson waited with Olivia Sullivan for her transportation. He blew warm air onto his hands, hunched his shoulders against the cold, and stomped his feet occasionally, mentally cursing the weather the whole time. If the cold in the north was a physical attack, then the southern cold was pure magic damage, a damp chill that seeped through your skin straight to the bone. This year was exceptionally cold. Even Green Valley, which hadn't seen snow for several years running, had gotten some snowfall just a few days ago. Olivia Sullivan watched Michael Thompson, who was practically tap dancing from the cold, his neck bare and hands without gloves. Then she glanced down at herself. Thick scarf, cute earmuffs, pink gloves. The complete warm weather set, not a single piece missing. Michael Thompson inwardly regretted ignoring Mrs. Thompson's advice to wear thermal leggings to school. He'd opted for style over warmth. Just then, he felt a tap on his arm and turned to see Olivia Sullivan holding out a scarf toward him. What's this for? To borrow. Aren't you cold? Got another one? This color's a bit girly. Fine, forget it then. I'll take it, why wouldn't I? Michael Thompson took it and nonchalantly wrapped it around his neck, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. Olivia Sullivan shot him an exasperated look as he started humming a cheerful, slightly goofy tune. Folks are happy today, yes sir, happy today. She turned her head away as if embarrassed by him and huffed softly, so childish. This time, Michael Thompson didn't let Olivia Sullivan drive him home. After all, they lived in completely opposite directions, and it felt awkward always having her go out of her way. Olivia seemed to want to object, hesitating several times, but couldn't bring herself to say anything, so she just let it be for now. Once the Sullivan family car arrived, Michael Thompson watched Olivia get in before tucking his hands under his arms and strolling towards the bus stop. Inside the car, Olivia leaned against the window, resting her chin on her hand. She gazed out until Michael Thompson's figure disappeared from view, then reluctantly pulled her eyes away. "Uncle Wilson," she said, turning to the driver. Uncle Wilson smiled kindly. "Yes, miss. Tomorrow. Could you wait for me at the bus stop?" "Huh? The bus stop? That's pretty far from your school, isn't it? It's like a 10-minute walk." "That's okay. It's even better that way." Uncle Wilson was puzzled by Olivia's decision, but agreed nonetheless. Olivia rested her head against the window, watching the scenery fly by outside, a thought crossing her mind. It would be nice if the bus stop were even farther from school. The days passed, one after another, and the final exams drew closer. Before they knew it, it was January 18th. After school that day, Michael Thompson was walking with Olivia Sullivan towards the bus stop as usual. Except, at that moment, he was enduring her nonstop nagging. "I heard you're sleeping in class every day. Even art majors need good grades, right? How are you going to get into Rhode Island School of Design like this? What are your plans for winter break? There are some really good SAT prep classes in the city. Do you want me to recommend one? Finals are the day after tomorrow. How's your studying going?" "Michael Thompson, I'm talking to you." Finally, seeing Michael ignore her, Olivia said irritably, puffing her cheeks out, "If you don't want to talk to me, I won't talk to you anymore." "Huh?" Michael Thompson took off his headphones then, looking a bit lost. "Were you talking to me just now?" Only then did Olivia notice the guy had sneakily put on headphones at some point. She glared at Michael Thompson, grinding her teeth. Michael Thompson chuckled lightly. "Why do you care so much about my studies? We just have a purely financial relationship, remember?" Of course, Olivia cared. She was secretly dreaming of going to college in Boston with Michael Thompson. But naturally, she couldn't say that out loud. Olivia could only make an excuse, saying awkwardly, Of course it concerns me. You need to get into a good university so you can earn more money later to pay me back." "Don't worry. I'll surprise you during winter break," Michael Thompson said, exuding confidence. Olivia had no idea what he was up to, just gave him a suspicious look. But then she asked, "Are you going to join an SAT prep class with me during the break? I know some great prep centers with really good teachers." She wanted Michael Thompson to go with her. Otherwise, she might not see him again until after the holidays. No way. He had better options than SAT prep classes. Why would he go to one? Olivia's mind raced, and she took the opportunity to ask about Michael Thompson's plans. "So, what are you planning to do over winter break?" Michael Thompson rubbed his chin, frowning as if deep in thought. After a moment, he said very seriously, "Sleep more." Olivia glared and ground her teeth again. She huffed and said fiercely, "You've used up your quota for annoying me today. I'm docking your pay." As part of their once-a-day agreement, Michael had also negotiated a condition. The first time she got angry each day, she couldn't dock his pay. She decided to drop the subject, as it was only making her angry, and switch to a topic she'd been wanting to discuss with him. "Michael Thompson, it seems like Jake Wilson and Claire Evans are dating. You're good friends with Jake Wilson, right? Did you know?" Michael Thompson, who had been strolling cheerfully with his hands in his pockets, was so shocked his jaw nearly dropped. "Fatty and the tomboy? Are you kidding me?" Olivia punched him lightly and said irritably, "Claire Evans is my best friend. Don't you talk bad about her." "No, wait, let me process this." Michael Thompson frowned, rubbing his forehead, still finding it unbelievable. As best buddies who'd practically grown up together, he could say he knew Jake Wilson inside and out. But he never heard Fatty mention anything about dating Claire Evans back in high school. Besides, wasn't Fatty always crushing on his own cousin, Emily Thompson? He'd been crushing on her since elementary school. Although in his past life, even when they were both in their 30s, nothing ever came of it. Michael Thompson carefully searched his memories. Just like how he and Olivia Sullivan hadn't had much interaction during high school in his previous life, Jake Wilson and Claire Evans had merely been classmates. They hadn't even really spent time alone together. In his past life, he'd lost contact with Claire Evans after high school graduation and only heard she had gone abroad right after. And Jake Wilson wasn't the handsome guy he'd become later. Back then, he was fat as a ball. Claire Evans was a bit obsessed with looks, especially into those effeminate-looking K-pop stars. There's no way she would have been interested in Fatty back then, right? Michael Thompson suspected it might be a butterfly effect from his rebirth. Still, Jake Wilson and Claire Evans. Fatty was really asking for trouble. Michael Thompson suddenly found it very amusing. He said to Olivia, "Claire Evans is your best friend, right?" Olivia nodded, confused. "And Fatty's my best friend too," Michael Thompson hinted. "So, shouldn't we, give our best friend a little push?" What does give him a push mean? Olivia, who had never encountered such slang before, looked clueless. Michael Thompson gave a mischievous grin and whispered something in her ear. Olivia's cheeks gradually turned red as she listened. She said playfully reproachful, "You're so bad." Michael Thompson regretted that those words weren't followed by, "And I like it." Achoo, achoo. On the other side of Oakwood High School, inside a diner, Jake Wilson sneezed several times in a row. Claire Evans, sitting across from him, looked disgusted. "Fatty, you're disgusting." Jake Wilson could only apologize sheepishly, feeling a strange sensation. "Why did I suddenly feel a chill?" Claire Evans waved her hand dismissively. All right. Hurry up and finish. The dorms are closing soon. It's hard to get Olivia out because of finals, but during Christmas." She spoke softly, and Jake Wilson listened intently, nodding from time to time. The two of them, in that small diner, were also plotting their winter break wingman plan. Oakwood High School's final exams ran from January 19th to the 22nd. During this time, a major event occurred, just as Michael Thompson had expected. The global stock market crash spread to China, and Shanghai stock prices plummeted in a single day. His younger uncle, Uncle Ben Thompson, who was always hyping up the stock market as a gold mine and persuading family members to invest, finally shut up completely. Not only that, but Aunt Daisy gave him a serious dressing down, and rumor had it that the control over the Thompson household finances had now completely changed hands. Fortunately, thanks to Michael Thompson's warning this time around, the Thompson family wasn't dragged into a financial crisis like they were in his previous life. Instead, because his uncle pulled out in time, he avoided getting wiped out and actually made a nice windfall from the market. He had also taken over a garment factory in the next county and planned to start production right after Christmas, marking his first step in transitioning from a distributor to a manufacturer. Michael Thompson benefited from this too. Aunt Daisy hadn't forgotten her eldest nephew's helpful tip. Beaming, she brought over a huge bag of designer clothes for him. As long as Michael kept his figure, he wouldn't have to worry about new clothes for the rest of high school. But he couldn't bring himself to be happy, because he had bombed his final exams. That day, Michael Thompson had just picked up his report card from school and was walking towards the school plaza with Jake Wilson and Emily Thompson. Jake Wilson held his report card, practically bursting with pride, and said gleefully, "Michael, I got 10th in honors class A this time, and 50th in our grade. What do you think about asking my mom for an e-bike? She should say yes, right?" Jake Wilson's grades in Oakwood High's honors class weren't usually that great. He typically hovered around 20th or 30th place, basically middle of the pack. Getting 10th on this final exam was a huge improvement, so it was no wonder he was ecstatic. Emily Thompson casually slapped Jake Wilson on the shoulder. "Nice going, fatty. Doesn't this mean you owe your big sis Emily some KFC?" As soon as Emily Thompson slapped his shoulder, Jake Wilson became awkward, even stuttering. "And no problem, big sis Emily. Whenever you're free." He and Michael Thompson were childhood friends, and naturally, so was Emily Thompson. That's why Emily treated Jake Wilson very casually, like one of the guys. Only Jake Wilson seemed to have a hidden crush. Whenever he saw Emily Thompson, he'd get shy and bashful like a kid with a secret, even stuttering when he spoke. Because Emily Thompson was a few months older than both boys, she always called herself Big Sis Emily around them. But Michael Thompson, her actual cousin, paid her no mind and just called her Emily. Only Jake Wilson would obediently call her Big Sis Emily. "Don't go home for lunch, Michael. Fatty's treating us to KFC," Emily Thompson said, poking Michael Thompson's arm with a mischievous glint in her eyes, clearly pleased she'd managed to get a free meal out of Jake Wilson. But Michael Thompson just glanced at them, curled his lip, and moved slightly away, completely ignoring them. Emily Thompson noticed Michael Thompson seemed upset and asked, "What's wrong? Did you bomb the exams?" Jake Wilson, standing beside Emily Thompson, smiled shyly. "Big sis Emily, Michael definitely did better than me. He's just hiding it cause he doesn't want to treat us. Makes sense, the cheapskate." Emily Thompson reached for the report card in Michael Thompson's hand. When he wouldn't let go, she coaxed Jake Wilson. "Fatty, help me hold him down. I'll treat you to a game at the pool hall later." Jake Wilson was overjoyed and, completely disregarding their friendship, immediately grabbed Michael Thompson. With Jake Wilson's considerable bulk, weighing easily 230, 240, even if it wasn't all muscle, it was still solid weight, Michael Thompson was instantly pinned. He cursed angrily. "Fatty, are you freaking brainless? She goes to your family's arcade center to play pool, and says she'll treat you? Have you ever actually seen her pay for anything? Jake Wilson knew this perfectly well, but he turned a deaf ear. Who cared if she actually treated him? Just having big sis Emily willing to play pool with him was enough. While Jake Wilson held Michael Thompson back, Emily Thompson grinningly snatched the report card from his hand. As soon as she looked at Michael Thompson's report card, she gasped, covering her mouth in surprise. She read it carefully again, and when she looked up at Michael, her face was full of sympathy. Michael, you are so dead. Aunt Maggie is definitely going to kill you. Hearing this, Jake Wilson's curiosity was piqued, and he let go of Michael Thompson. Big sis Emily, let me see. He leaned closer, first glancing at Michael's class rank, and said, puzzled, 10th in honors class. Yeah, that's a bit of a slip, but Aunt Maggie wouldn't actually. He stopped mid-sentence. He suddenly remembered that Michael Thompson had transferred to the art studio program, and then he saw the grades for the academic subjects listed at the bottom of the report card. His face instantly filled with sympathy as he looked at Michael Thompson. Michael, you are so dead. Aunt Maggie is definitely going to kill you. Michael Thompson felt resigned. Even though he had the system's dream tutoring sessions helping him review high school material, there just hadn't been enough time. It was impossible to completely catch up to his previous academic level in just a few days. Getting these scores was actually not bad, all things considered. He straightened his messy clothes, snatched the report card back from them, and scoffed. Mrs. Thompson only has one son. If she kills me, who's going to inherit the family fortune? There's still me. Emily Thompson grinned, pointing at herself. I'm Aunt Maggie's kid too. You mere girl dare to covet my kingdom. Fatty, hold him down. I'm going to show this jerk why they say women hold up half the sky. Okay. Fatty, whose freaking side are you on? The three of them started roughhousing outside the school building, just like any other day. Meanwhile, Olivia Sullivan had also just emerged from the school building with her report card, her eyes red as if she had just been crying. Like Michael Thompson, she hadn't done well on her finals either. She hadn't been able to focus on studying because she couldn't stop thinking about Michael Thompson, especially when he hadn't reached out to her earlier, leaving her feeling anxious and unsettled. As a result, her grades suffered. Her homeroom teacher, Mr. Wilson, had specifically kept her back for a talk. Rumors about Olivia Sullivan and Michael Thompson dating had been circulating in class lately, and, as their teacher, he wasn't oblivious. Sometimes students thought their whispered secrets wouldn't reach the teachers, but they didn't realize that experienced teachers like Mr. Wilson, who had taught countless classes, often saw things crystal clear. Seeing as Michael Thompson had already transferred classes, Mr. Wilson hadn't planned on intervening. But when he saw that one of his top students' grades had slipped significantly because of the situation, he felt compelled to say something. Mr. Wilson knew girls could be sensitive, so he wasn't harsh, just offered some gentle advice. In high school, it's best to keep your focus on academics. There's plenty of time for certain things after the college entrance exams. High school is just a small pond after all. Once you graduate and step out into the world, you'll discover a much bigger horizon. He didn't even mention Michael Thompson by name. If there truly was nothing going on between Olivia and Michael, and it was all just gossip, she likely wouldn't have even known what he was talking about. But Olivia clearly did. Every word from Mr. Wilson felt like a knife twisting in Olivia Sullivan's gut, subtly, and not so subtly, criticizing her for letting distractions cause her grades to slip. The worst part was she couldn't argue, because it was true. Swallowing her hurt, Olivia clutched her report card and left the academic building. Her best friend, Claire Evans, linked arms with her, comforting her softly. Olivia, it's okay. It's just one final exam. It doesn't mean anything. And you didn't even do badly. Second in the class, and sixth in our grade level. If I brought these scores home, my parents would be ecstatic. Claire was chattering excitedly until she saw her friend's face fall even further. She instantly wanted to slap herself. This was the first time since starting high school that Olivia hadn't ranked first in their class, and she'd even dropped out of the top 5 in their grade. Olivia's goal was always to be number 1 overall. Bringing this up was just rubbing salt in the wound. Claire quickly tried to change the subject. Looking up, she spotted the Thompson siblings and Jake Wilson up ahead. Her eyes lit up. Olivia, look, Michael Thompson's over there. Let's go say hi. Claire figured seeing Michael Thompson would definitely cheer Olivia up. Michael himself might not pay much attention, but Jake Wilson was there. That guy owed her a favor. He'd better help run some interference, right? Ideally, he could lure the girl next to Michael away, and Claire could make an excuse to leave too, giving Olivia and Michael some time alone. Call me the best wingwoman ever, Claire thought smugly. Actually, Olivia Sullivan didn't need Claire's prompt. She'd already noticed Michael Thompson just ahead. She pouted, wanting badly to go over and vent her frustrations, to have someone she could be a little grumpy with. But Olivia quickly saw Michael wasn't alone. Jake Wilson was with him, along with the girl she'd seen before. Because of last time, Olivia knew this girl was Michael Thompson's cousin, so there was no reason to be jealous. But she also knew something else, thanks to Michael's thoughts. Jake Wilson had a long-standing crush on this girl named Emily. Olivia snuck a glance at Claire, only to find Claire secretly watching her too. Their eyes met, and both felt a little awkward. Claire forced an awkward smile. "Oh, that girl with Michael Thompson, she's probably Jake Wilson's sister or something, right?" Inside, Claire was kicking herself. She hadn't gotten a good look earlier. When did Michael Thompson get a girl next to him? Could it be his girlfriend? It was possible. While the girl wasn't as pretty as Olivia, she was quite attractive and, crucially, had a better figure than Olivia. Claire glanced over again and saw the girl laughing, playfully messing with Michael Thompson's hair while animatedly talking to Jake Wilson. Michael seemed to be playfully cursing back, but wasn't actually annoyed at all. They were acting so close. Who would believe nothing was going on? My big mouth. Why did I suggest going over to say hi? Olivia was already upset. Taking her over for a potential face-off would just add fuel to the fire. No, I have to find a way to avoid Michael's group. As Claire schemed, she had no idea Olivia Sullivan was thinking the exact same thing. Olivia barely had time to feel bad about her slipping grades. She was too worried, watching her best friend's expression. Lately, she noticed Claire often wasn't eating lunch with her, instead sneaking off campus with Jake Wilson. Once, worried about Claire, Olivia had even secretly followed them, only to find the two drinking bubble tea together. Although Claire hadn't confirmed anything, Olivia sensed that Claire and Jake at least had mutual feelings. When she heard Claire's forced cheerfulness suggesting the girl with Michael was probably Jake's sister, the self-deceiving, strained smile was heartbreaking to see. Olivia felt that, as Claire's best friend, she had to protect her friend's budding romance. At the very least, she couldn't let Claire get hurt like this. So, right now, she had to pretend she didn't know anything and stop Claire from going over there. The two friends, each misunderstanding the situation for the other's sake, coincidentally arrived at the same plan. Olivia and Claire met each other's eyes, both looks tinged with sympathy, and forced a smile for their best friend. "Claire Evans, I'm suddenly kind of thirsty. Want to go to the snack shop?" "What a coincidence. I'm thirsty too. Let's go to the diner." "Okay." With an unspoken understanding, neither mentioned saying hi to Michael Thompson's group again. Arm in arm, they turned and walked in the opposite direction. The subjects of their concern had no idea that two girls, fueled by vivid imaginations, were practically scripting a dramatic soap opera in their minds. After leaving school, Michael Thompson, Emily Thompson, and Jake Wilson hopped on a bus straight to Jake's house. Jake used to live in Pine Creek Town too. The Wilson and Thompson families were next-door neighbors. But when Jake started middle school, his family bought a house in the county town and moved the whole family to Pine Ridge County. Jake's family owned an entertainment center in town. Calling it that was a bit of a joke. It was really just an arcade. Rows of arcade cabinets lined the store, and during school breaks, it swarmed with elementary school kids. Still, the Wilson family's arcade was the biggest in the county. Besides the arcade on the ground floor, there was a pool hall upstairs and a roller skating rink downstairs. It had made good money in previous years, though business had slowed down recently as more families got home computers. When Michael Thompson had free time, he loved coming over to Jake's. His own house didn't have a computer, but there was plenty to do at Jake's. Plus, he and Jake both liked playing pool and would often shoot a few games, free of charge. Right now, the three of them had just finished eating at the KFC across from Jake's arcade and had come inside to hang out. Jake and Emily Thompson were playing pool. Emily leaned over the table, body curved nicely, expertly striking the cue ball with a sharp crack. A beautiful break shot. Michael wasn't playing. He was sitting in the lounge area, sipping a drink, cheerfully shooting the breeze with a middle-aged man holding a cigarette. "Michael," the man said familiarly, using Michael's nickname, "your Uncle Jake here is thinking about getting a spot in the downtown area, opening a really big karaoke place. What do you think? Do students like you guys like to go sing and stuff during breaks? You've always been full of ideas since you were a kid. Give your uncle some advice." The middle-aged man was clearly very comfortable with Michael Thompson. This was Jake Wilson's father, James Wilson, a genuinely handsome older man who looked closer to 30 than his nearly 50 years. He had a trim figure and sharp features. The only odd thing was a scar running through his left eyebrow, leaving half of it missing. Otherwise, he was a total heartthrob. James Wilson had watched the Thompson siblings grow up. He and their parents had been neighbors for almost 20 years, so he treated them like his own kids, speaking without any formality. Michael Thompson's eyes instantly lit up. Is it going to be legit? James Wilson immediately puffed out his chest. Of course it's legit. Oh, legit. Michael Thompson immediately lost interest, pursing his lips and going back to sipping his drink. Then I probably won't go. James Wilson paused for a good moment before figuring out what Michael meant. He gave Michael's head a playful swat, laughing exasperatedly. You little rascal. Uncle Ben Thompson is such an honest guy. How did he end up with a punk like you? James Wilson really thought of Michael Thompson as his own nephew, so he didn't hesitate to chew him out. Michael Thompson didn't get upset, just scratched his head and cheerfully shot back a couple of witty remarks. This made James Wilson roar with laughter, and he threw in a few off-color jokes of his own during their banter. He genuinely liked the Thompson boy. Michael had always been charmingly quick-witted since he was little. Then he'd look at his own son. The kid blushed just talking to girls and clammed up like a mute around elders, never knowing what to say. James himself had relied on his quick tongue back in the day. How did he end up with a kid like this? Sometimes he even wondered if they'd mixed up Michael Thompson and Jake Wilson in the delivery room. Maybe his own chubby kid was actually the Thompson boy. Michael Thompson and Jake Wilson's birthdays were only 2 days apart. Since the Thompsons and Wilsons were neighbors living one floor apart back then, both boys were born in the same hospital. James Wilson often joked with Robert Thompson that it was a shame his wife had a boy. Otherwise, they definitely would have arranged a marriage to make their families even closer. Michael Thompson thought it was a shame, too. With Uncle James's good genes, wouldn't a daughter have been gorgeous? But unfortunately, Jake Wilson was the only child in the Wilson family. When he was little, Michael even tried to persuade Uncle James to try again while he was still young and give Jake a baby sister. That earned him a few smacks on the behind with a slipper from Uncle James, who laughingly called him a little pervert. Young Michael felt wronged, so he got Emily Thompson to help him beat up Jake Wilson until he was bawling. Those were amusing stories from before elementary school. Thinking back now, it still brought a fond smile to his face. Michael Thompson listened to James Wilson ramble on about his grand plans for opening a KTV karaoke bar, smiled without joining in, and kept watching James and Emily Thompson play pool. In his past life, James Wilson eventually closed this arcade and opened that KTV, and business was always booming. But that KTV always had one room, not open to the public, containing a pool table and a few old arcade machines. It held memories for Uncle James, and for Michael Thompson and Jake Wilson too. Whenever he and Jake returned to Pine Ridge County later on, they would always go there to shoot some pool, feeling like they'd stepped back into that earlier time. Now, those past memories were replaying right before his eyes. After a few games with James Wilson, Emily Thompson got bored, tossed her cue onto the pool table, and turned to Michael Thompson. Michael, switch out. Uncle James, didn't you say the shop got a dance machine last time? I saw it on the first floor. Why is it covered up so no one can play? It's not set up yet. Let's go do it now. I can help you. Emily Thompson wasn't shy at all, enthusiastically urging James Wilson downstairs to set up the dance machine. James Wilson looked resigned, stubbed out his cigarette in the ashtray, got up, and took Emily Thompson downstairs to work on the machine. Just as they were heading down, they ran into Jake Wilson's mother, Laura Wilson, coming up with a plate of fruit. Emily's still such a whirlwind, isn't she? Laura Wilson watched her husband being pushed downstairs by Emily Thompson, came over smiling, and placed the fruit on a table. You two, come have some fruit. Michael, are you and Emily staying for turkey dinner tonight? I'll give Aunt Maggie a call in a bit. Michael Thompson was chalking his pool cue. Hearing this, he grinned and said, Sure, I've been craving Aunt Laura's barbecue ribs for ages. All right, Annie will make them for you. Laura Wilson smilingly agreed, then chatted with her own son for a while. When Jake Wilson was with his parents, he wasn't as relaxed and casual as he was with Michael Thompson. He mostly just answered when Laura Wilson asked him something. He had a more reserved, introverted personality, and, paradoxically, he didn't talk as much with his parents as he did with his friends. It wasn't rebellion or finding them annoying. He just didn't know what to say to them, so he only answered direct questions. Unlike Michael Thompson, who dared to sling an arm around his old man, Robert Thompson, and joke around with him like buddies. He also knew how to cheer up the short-tempered Margaret Thompson, although his attempts at flattery often backfired, leading to Margaret chasing him out of the house and into the yard with a feather duster, rolling pin, or threatening him with grounding. That's why James Wilson always suspected they'd swapped babies, and felt a little envious that the quiet-as-a-mouse Robert Thompson could produce such a quick-witted kid. Fortunately, Jake Wilson's final exam results this time were quite good. Laura Wilson was visibly pleased, her happiness written all over her face. She immediately pulled out several dollar bills as a reward for Jake, telling him he should also treat Michael Thompson and Emily Thompson to a nice meal out. After asking about her son's grades, Laura Wilson didn't forget to check in on Michael Thompson, who was like a nephew to her. "Michael, how were your finals? Your grades are always so good. You must have scored higher than Jake, right?" "Ah, what's the point of talking about that?" Michael Thompson waved his hand dismissively, acting nonchalant. He looked like he was trying to say, "I did so well. I'm afraid I'll discourage you if I tell you." Jake Wilson immediately grinned, ready to expose him. "Mom, you have no idea." "Fatty, break shot, break shot." Michael Thompson quickly tried to change the subject, but Jake Wilson wasn't intimidated, saying with a laugh, "Anyway, Michael's definitely going to get an earful from Aunt Maggie when he gets home." "You messed up." Laura Wilson covered her mouth in surprise. Michael Thompson instantly got annoyed and tapped Jake Wilson's, but with the end of his pool cue. "Fatty, come on, $10 a game. I need to teach you a lesson. I'm not scared of you." Jake Wilson wasn't afraid, picking up his cue, ready to seriously take Michael Thompson on. Inside the pool hall, the lights were dim. Maybe because school was out, quite a few people were at the arcade today, mostly students from nearby schools. But right now, almost everyone had stopped playing and gathered around one pool table, watching. Gasps of surprise occasionally broke out. At the center of the crowd, Michael Thompson was bent over attentively, leaning halfway across the pool table, his eyes fixed on the cue, ball, and pocket alignment. After a soft click, a solid-colored ball sank precisely into the pocket. He immediately stood up, chalked his cue tip, moved to a new position, and continued his run. Clack! Another ball went in. Nearby, Jake Wilson stood dumbfounded, holding his own cue, watching helplessly as Michael Thompson cleared the table shot after shot. Jake had only taken the opening break shot. Once the 8 ball sank, Michael Thompson grinned and held out his hand to Jake Wilson. "Ran the table. That'll be $10. Thank you kindly." Jake Wilson's face turned beet red. What did you get so good?" He clearly remembered Michael Thompson being about as skilled as he was. What he didn't know was that ever since Michael Thompson's system activated, the passive skills, dexterous hands, and stability had kicked in, making him practically a natural at pool. Jake Wilson immediately decided he wasn't playing against Michael Thompson anymore. Otherwise, the reward money his mom gave him today wouldn't even be enough to cover his losses. Losing only $10, cutting his losses short. That was lucky. Michael Thompson hadn't planned on playing more either. The $10 bet was mostly just to scare Jake and stop the damn fatty from gloating. "Hey, handsome, can I buy you a drink?" Just then, a bold girl came up to hit on Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson had just shown off his skills in the pool hall. He wasn't bad-looking himself, and girls who hung out at arcades tended to be a bit bolder anyway, so it wasn't surprising someone would approach him. But the voice sounded familiar. Before he could respond, he felt something ice-cold on his neck. Michael Thompson jumped and was about to curse. What kind of lunatic puts an icy drink on someone's neck in the middle of winter? But when he turned and saw who it was, he shut his mouth. It was a young-looking girl with dyed purple hair, heavy makeup, wearing a short, tight leather miniskirt despite the winter cold, black tights showing off her legs underneath, and a denim jacket on top. She looked at Michael Thompson with a mischievous grin, the icy bottle of Coke in her hand, clearly the weapon. Michael Thompson actually recognized this Violet Sullivan. This was the girl he'd met at the Sullivan's place last time. The alternative, VIP, crown-wearing noble girl, Violet Sullivan. Michael Thompson wasn't looking for trouble. My mom told me not to take things from strangers. Violet Sullivan seemed to have forgotten Michael Thompson. She stared at him for a moment, blinked, and asked, "Have we met somewhere before?" Suddenly, as if struck by lightning, her eyes widened, and she took a step back. "You're that pervert. You can't just say things like that." Michael Thompson immediately put on a stern face and rebuked her seriously. It seemed she remembered the words he'd used to scare her last time. But Violet Sullivan quickly calmed down, her mischievous grin returning. "Since we've met, we're not strangers anymore. So, can you accept the drink? In exchange, my friend over there wants your contact info." She pointed behind her. Sure enough, 2 young girls dressed in a similarly flashy style were standing nearby. Michael Thompson glanced over, saw them, and sighed. "Not interested. I don't have a messenger account." Violet Sullivan, ? Just then, Jake Wilson walked over. "Michael, what's going on?" He hadn't heard what Michael Thompson and Violet Sullivan were saying. As he approached, he glanced warily at Violet Sullivan. Seeing her outfit, he pegged her as a delinquent type and worried she was looking for trouble with Michael. Arcades were known hangouts for troublemakers, and fights or extortion attempts happened occasionally. But anyone bold enough to open such a large arcade in the county naturally had ways to handle things. Jake Wilson's introversion was relative. When it came to friends and family, he was the type to jump in first and ask questions later if Michael Thompson got into a fight. Violet Sullivan didn't know Jake Wilson and watched with amusement as the chubby guy approached. However, her two friends behind her seemed to recognize him. Not wanting trouble, they came over, whispered something to Violet Sullivan, apparently urging her to leave. Before leaving, Violet Sullivan walked up to Michael Thompson and asked, "What's your name?" Clearly, she hadn't remembered his name from last time. Michael Thompson replied without batting an eye, "I stand by my name and family. Jake Wilson, Oakwood High School, Honors Class A, at your service." Hee hee, you're funny. Well then, brother Jake Wilson, see you next time? She lightly patted Michael Thompson's shoulder, chuckled, and left. After Violet Sullivan left, Jake Wilson walked over to Michael Thompson and asked puzzledly, "Who was that?" "Someone hitting on me." Michael Thompson didn't mention she was Olivia Sullivan's cousin, just gave a casual answer. He sighed dramatically. "Fatty, you totally ruined my chances. You owe me." Jake Wilson gave him a strange look. "Michael, you're into that type?" "Nope." Michael Thompson grinned cheekily. "But I appreciate her good taste, recognizing the handsomeness others fail to see." Jake Wilson. "Fatty, has anything like that ever happened to you?" Hey, don't walk away." Jake Wilson clearly didn't want to listen to Michael Thompson brag anymore and turned to leave. That evening, the Thompson siblings ended up having turkey dinner at the Wilson house. Laura Wilson was an excellent cook. The meal looked, smelled, and tasted delicious. Otherwise, the siblings wouldn't be coming over to freeload every few days. Emily Thompson listened as Jake Wilson animatedly recounted, with some embellishments, the story of Michael Thompson getting hit on earlier. She laughed so hard she nearly split her sides. "Ha, Michael, why didn't you say yes? Girls with bad taste are hard to find these days." Michael Thompson shot her a glare. "Can't you keep your mouth shut even while eating?" Jake Wilson just smiled, though a bit awkwardly. He couldn't help feeling that Emily's comment had inadvertently insulted a certain school beauty. Laura Wilson loved this atmosphere. Usually, during family dinners, her son was quiet around his parents, just silently eating. Only when the boisterous Thompson siblings came over did her own son liven up too. This was much better, lively and cheerful. Michael Thompson called out to Laura Wilson, who was wiping the table, "Aunt Laura, I'm sleeping over with Fatty tonight." Jake Wilson protested. "No way I'm sleeping with you. You hog the blankets." "Oh, really? It was all sweetie pie when we were watching the flowers, moon, and stars together. Now you've changed your tune and call me old cow." Michael Thompson slung an arm around Jake's neck. "Come on, buddy, best friends forever, right? One blanket for life." Laura Wilson cheerfully agreed. "Okay, I'll just call Aunt Maggie in a bit and let her know." Emily Thompson poked her head out from the kitchen, mercilessly exposing him. "Aunt Laura, don't listen to him. Michael's just scared of getting yelled at when he goes home. Aunt Maggie is waiting for him with his report card." At her words, Michael Thompson flushed red, veins popping on his forehead, arguing, "Am I scared? That's called family honor. Besides, won't her hand get tired hitting me?" He followed up with a string of confusing justifications, mentioning things like biblical sacrifice and Mencius's mother moving 3 times, which made everyone roar with laughter, filling the living room and kitchen with cheerful noise. The Thompson siblings stayed the night at the Wilsons. Although Jake Wilson grumbled nonstop, he still ended up sharing one blanket for life with his good buddy Michael Thompson. Emily Thompson shared a room with Aunt Laura. Poor Uncle James went from laughing to realizing with dismay that he'd been kicked out of his own house. There weren't enough rooms, so he had to sleep at the arcade. While Michael Thompson was having fun, Olivia Sullivan was motivating herself to study harder. "I have to study hard during winter break. No seeing Michael Thompson. Once every 2 weeks, once a week at most." She had made up her mind. She couldn't let things involving Michael Thompson affect her studies anymore before graduating high school. To show her resolve, right after getting her report card today, she started studying at home that evening, preparing for the next day's SAT prep class. She studied late into the night. Feeling thirsty, Olivia Sullivan left her room and went downstairs to get a glass of water. When she reached the first-floor living room, having just filled her glass, she saw Violet Sullivan just getting back from outside. "Violet's just getting back this late." Olivia Sullivan glanced at her cousin, but since the two weren't close, she didn't plan to say anything and turned to go back to her room. However, Violet Sullivan, who was changing her shoes in the entryway, called out to her. "Olivia Sullivan, I ran into that little boyfriend of yours today." Violet Sullivan said, not without a hint of malice. "He's quite the player, you know." Clang! The water glass slipped from Olivia Sullivan's hand and crashed to the floor. She stared blankly at Violet Sullivan, her face etched with disbelief. Jure lying. Olivia Sullivan's face flushed red as she glared indignantly at her cousin. Her first instinct wasn't even to deny that Michael Thompson was her boyfriend, but simply to accuse Violet Sullivan of lying. She knew what her cousin was like. Even though Violet was only a sophomore in Class 1, she was wild. Olivia could easily guess the kinds of places she usually hung out. And Violet said she'd seen Michael Thompson there, which would mean Michael went to those kind of places too. No way. And she even said he knew how to have a good time. Michael Thompson was definitely not that kind of person. He wouldn't hang around shady places like that. Olivia Sullivan found herself subconsciously defending Michael Thompson in her mind. Believe it or not, suit yourself. I'm just letting you know, Violet Sullivan said, clearly not interested in arguing. She just wanted to deliver the news. As she walked past Olivia, she chuckled softly. One of my friends even got a crush on him today. With that, she headed straight upstairs. Olivia Sullivan stood frozen in the hall for a long time, trying to reassure herself. Trust Michael Thompson. Trust Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson had said he'd only been in love once in his life, and that one time lasted a lifetime. His inner thoughts wouldn't lie. But, Michael Thompson might only like her, but he wasn't exactly shy. He loved to have fun and fool around. The first time she'd suddenly been able to hear his thoughts, he'd been thinking about going to that massage parlor near the university town to get a foot rub from that masseuse he knew. Violet Sullivan had only met Michael Thompson once, right? She wouldn't just come over and say something like that out of the blue for no reason. The more Olivia Sullivan thought about it, the deeper her frown became, and her fists clenched tight. In Jake Wilson's room, Jake handed Michael Thompson a large stuffed animal, about half his height. Michael Thompson squinted at the large plush toy Jake offered him, but didn't take it. What's this for? Michael, don't you know you have that weird habit of needing to hug something when you sleep? You always steal the blankets and curl up with them. Hug this instead. I don't feel like freezing tonight. Jake Wilson had clearly learned from past experience. He was still a little puzzled, though. You weren't like this when we were kids, were you? Where did you pick up this weird habit? Probably after I got married. You might not believe this, but I was kind of forced into it. Michael Thompson just chuckled, offering no explanation as he took the plush toy and plopped down on the bed. I'm going to sleep. Turn off the light. Jake Wilson shook his head helplessly. He was getting used to Michael Thompson's occasional bizarre statements. Just as Michael Thompson was about to get changed for bed, the phone in his pocket buzzed. He pulled out his phone. Jake Wilson glanced over, but didn't say anything. Jake had been with him when he bought this phone. He was one of the very few people who knew Michael even had one. Not even Emily Thompson knew. Michael Thompson glanced at the screen and saw a messenger notification from Olivia Sullivan. Violet Sullivan said she saw you today. Going to places like that isn't good. We're still students. It could affect our studies. The two messages came almost one after the other, sounding a bit preachy, like a lecture. But the third message didn't arrive until a while later. Can you please not go to places like that anymore? Just reading the message, Michael Thompson could picture Olivia Sullivan pouting, looking a little hurt as she typed it. He decided to tease her. Olivia, my dear classmate, in what capacity are you offering this advice? Even my mom doesn't tell me what to do like this. It was true. Margaret Thompson didn't care what Michael did over at the Wilsons, unless Laura Wilson called to complain that instead of studying with Jake, he was just messing around in the gaming lounge. Only then would she get mad and call him, telling him to get his butt home. Olivia Sullivan's reply on Messenger didn't come for a moment. Then, your boss. She'd become rather fond of using this playful boss identity to try and get Michael Thompson to listen to her. But Michael Thompson wasn't playing along this time. Even a boss can't interfere with an employee's private life. Classmate, I'm not your classmate anymore. Olivia Sullivan tried a few more guesses, but Michael Thompson shot them all down, making her want to stomp her foot in frustration on the other end. If you keep this up, I'm not giving you a present for graduation. She had once promised to give Michael Thompson a present when they graduated high school. Although, Michael Thompson would have to come and get it himself. She wasn't about to make the first move. Michael Thompson replied wearily, Fine, couldn't you just guess friend? Ooh, who's friends with you? Don't get any ideas. Olivia Sullivan's reaction was surprisingly strong. She was clearly unhappy. The word friend had crossed her mind, but she hadn't said it. Because it wasn't enough. Even though they weren't dating yet, surely they were a little bit more than friends? Even just a tiny bit more would mean she was special in Michael Thompson's eyes. Michael Thompson replied seriously, Well, since you put it that way, our relationship must definitely be a step above friends. He sounded so serious that Olivia panicked. No, I was just talking. Actually, back in high school, I didn't really want to. Before she could even finish typing and send the message, Michael Thompson's reply came through. Then it must be family. I guess I could reluctantly be your dad. Olivia Sullivan. She silently deleted the message she hadn't sent yet, word by word, and started typing again. Olivia Sullivan. I'm coming to find you tomorrow. Olivia Sullivan. Be prepared. The full 3 exclamation points gave it a rather intimidating feel. Michael Thompson stared blankly at his phone for a second, then mentally facepalmed. Damn it, why did I have to say that? That evening, Claire Evans was lying on her bed at home, scrolling through her phone, when she suddenly got a call from Olivia Sullivan. Hey, Olivia, what's up? School just let out, and you miss me already, she teased into the phone. But the voice that came back sounded both angry and upset. Claire. Claire Evans sat bolt upright in bed. What's wrong? Who upset you? From your tone, I get the feeling you're about to blow up. Olivia Sullivan. After Claire Evans finished her private chat with Olivia Sullivan, she immediately called Jake Wilson. Olivia Sullivan hadn't told Claire about her issues with Michael Thompson directly. She'd vaguely asked for advice on how to persuade a relative's kid who supposedly kept going to places minors weren't allowed. If Michael Thompson had been asked that question, he definitely would have launched into some long-winded answers starting with something like, "Thanks for asking, currently in the U.S., just landed." But Claire Evans' intuition was sharp. As Olivia Sullivan's best friend, she knew Olivia didn't get along well with any of her relatives' kids. Why would she suddenly care about something like this? This had to be about Michael Thompson. Actually, whether it was related or not, calling Jake Wilson to ask couldn't hurt. Jake Wilson had always had a cell phone. His dad, James Wilson, had bought it for him as a reward when he graduated middle school and got into the prestigious Oakwood High School. This had made Michael Thompson jealous for ages, because his dear old mom, Margaret Thompson, refused to buy him one. She said it would distract him from his studies, and he shouldn't even think about phones or computers during high school. Emily Thompson didn't have a phone either, but she was just unlucky, dragged down by Michael. Since they were kids, everything had been kept perfectly even between them. If Michael got a new backpack, she got one too. If Emily got a new toy, Michael got one too. So, since Michael didn't have a phone, neither did she. The computer, though, was something Uncle Ben Thompson and Emily had bought secretly behind Aunt Maggie's back. Just as Jake Wilson was getting ready for bed, he got a call from Claire Evans. Michael Thompson craned his neck curiously, trying to see who was calling, but Jake Wilson quickly hid the phone, glancing guiltily at Michael. Still, in that brief glimpse, Michael had already seen the caller's name. You still say you have nothing? It's my grandma's call. I'll take it outside. Jake Wilson stammered out a clumsy lie and walked out onto the balcony with his phone, clearly not wanting Michael Thompson to overhear the conversation. Michael Thompson looked towards the floor-to-ceiling glass doors, watching Jake Wilson talking on the balcony. He usually didn't like meddling in other people's relationships, but this particular pairing, he found it increasingly amusing. Michael Thompson's diplomatic asylum at the Wilson house could only last one night. The next day, Margaret Thompson's urgent summons reached the Wilsons. Even clinging to the Wilsons' pillars wouldn't have helped. He had to obediently go home. On the way home, Michael Thompson and Emily Thompson walked along the edge of Green River. Nearby was Pine Creek Town's elementary school, but it was closed for the holidays, the entire campus silent. Michael Thompson suddenly stopped. Emily Thompson turned back, puzzled, only to see her cousin looking towards the calm Green River with a melancholic gaze, seemingly filled with endless sorrow. He sighed lightly. This river I shall not cross. Emily Thompson? ? Now I face a wolf ahead and a tiger behind. Crossing this river means entering the dragon's pool, yet stepping back leads to the tiger's den. And this predicament is caused by the two women I love most. Michael Thompson sighed dramatically. This is the Green River, not the Woo River. You are a stupid dog and not overlord. Emily Thompson looked at him with utter disdain, holding nothing back. Besides, what two women you love most? Isn't the only woman who loves you your mom? Michael Thompson couldn't be bothered to argue. He pointed towards the Green River Bridge. Rather than go home and face humiliation, I might as well sleep under the bridge. Emily Thompson stared at him for a moment, then slowly backed away, nodding slowly. Well, good luck with that. Shouldn't siblings stick together at a time like this? Who wants to sleep under a bridge with you? You're the one getting beaten, not me. Goodbye, goodbye. My mom called me home for turkey dinner. Emily Thompson, completely heartless, slung her bag over her shoulder and bolted. Before Michael Thompson could even react, she was gone. Michael Thompson squatted by the Green River, watching the water flow east, muttering to himself, the only plan now is to pit the tiger against the wolf. He pulled his phone from his pocket, dialed a number, cleared his throat twice, and put on an incredibly bright smile. Hey, Olivia, are you free tonight? I wanted to invite you for turkey dinner. If Olivia Sullivan's mood yesterday was a thunderstorm, today it was a cloudless, sunny sky. She was in such a good mood that she hummed a little tune while picking out her clothes, hummed while taking a bath, and even hummed happily in her chauffeur-driven car after leaving the house. Even the chauffeur, Uncle Wilson, was muttering to himself, wondering if the young miss had been tickled silly or just gone plain daft, giggling like a broody hen in the back seat every so often. To be honest, it was a little creepy. Olivia Sullivan's good mood was mainly due to two things. After calling Claire Evans yesterday to vent a little, she hadn't expected Claire to call back soon after, seemingly casually mentioning Jake Wilson. And speaking of Jake Wilson, Claire had also mentioned his good buddy Michael Thompson. Apparently, they'd been together all day yesterday. Olivia Sullivan then figured out that Michael Thompson had gone to Jake Wilson's house yesterday, and it was at the gaming lounge owned by the Wilson family that he ran into Violet Sullivan. It had all been a misunderstanding. She was definitely annoyed that Violet Sullivan had deliberately said those misleading things to provoke her, but she was also happy it was just a misunderstanding. I really trust Michael Thompson, although I did waver a little bit at the end. Okay, really just a tiny bit. Olivia Sullivan conveniently forgot that her tiny bit of wavering had made her run off to complain to her best friend, albeit very euphemistically. She suddenly thought it would be great if Claire Evans and Jake Wilson got together. That way, she'd have another channel to find out what Michael Thompson was up to. But Claire has to actually like him, she thought. I can't just play matchmaker for my own benefit. But in Olivia Sullivan's opinion, it was pretty much a done deal. Otherwise, why would Claire Evans suddenly bring up Jake Wilson to her? Even though Claire hadn't admitted it, it was true that when you like someone, you couldn't help but share it with your best friend, even indirectly. Just like herself, Olivia Sullivan felt her cheeks flush slightly at the thought. But what made her happiest today wasn't clearing up the misunderstanding, but the fact that Michael Thompson had actually taken the initiative to invite her for turkey dinner. Michael Thompson waited downstairs from his apartment, squatting until his calves started to cramp. Just then, Olivia Sullivan called him. Look up. Michael Thompson looked up. Not far away, a car slowly approached and finally stopped right in front of him. The back door opened, and a graceful figure emerged. Olivia Sullivan was wearing a cute A-line dress today, dotted with tiny flowers. Although she wore thick tights underneath, her legs still looked slender and shapely. Her delicate features in this outfit made her look like an adorable doll. She seemed to have deliberately curled her hair. The soft waves framed her face, making it look smaller. Since she was still in high school, she wasn't wearing makeup, just a touch of tinted lip balm, which showed how much she valued this dinner. As Olivia Sullivan walked over, she saw Michael Thompson staring blankly at her and immediately wrinkled her little nose proudly. But then she noticed his gaze quickly drift down to her legs. Her face flushed red, and she reached down to pull her skirt lower, feeling shy and annoyed, yet also a little pleased. Until she heard Michael Thompson's inner thoughts. Ah, short legs. Her bright smile instantly vanished, replaced by a dark expression. Hey, Olivia, Michael Thompson greeted her warmly. Are you always this beautiful, or is it just today? Olivia Sullivan was taken aback for a moment, the slight frown on her face smoothing out. She retorted playfully, Are you always this smooth, or is it just today? Only when I'm happy, I guess, Michael Thompson said with a smile, looking at her. Like whenever I see you, Olivia. Olivia Sullivan blushed, unable to outwit him. She made a small fist and lightly punched his arm. Michael Thompson pointed a finger at her, warning her in mock seriousness. Hey, don't think you can just bully me because you're pretty, have a great figure, big eyes with double eyelids, a nice voice, and you walk gracefully. Smooth talker. Olivia Sullivan pursed her lips, shooting him an annoyed glance. She turned away and started walking towards the car parked by the road, a faint smile playing in her dimples, as if trying not to let Michael Thompson notice. She'd completely forgotten about Michael Thompson teasing her for having short legs. Weren't you going to treat me to a meal? Olivia asked, heading for the car. Get in. Where are we going? Michael Thompson caught her arm and pointed up the hill. Olivia Sullivan looked in the direction he was pointing, then back at Michael Thompson, blinking in confusion. Michael Thompson said, We don't need the car to get to where we're eating. Olivia Sullivan froze for a moment before it finally dawned on her. Isn't that Michael Thompson's house? Her mouth fell slightly open, and she stood dumbfounded for a moment before suddenly turning back towards the car. I just remembered I have something to do. Let's do dinner another time. Michael Thompson grabbed her wrist. You're already here, don't rush off. Just stay for a casual meal. No. Olivia Sullivan felt like she couldn't control her mouth, stuttering badly and struggling to get the words out. This. Does this count as meeting the parents? But she and Michael Thompson haven't even started anything serious yet. This is way too fast. And the first visit is supposed to be important. What should I do? Is my hair messy? Should I have worn something more mature? Is this outfit too childish? Gifts. I didn't even buy gifts for his parents. Olivia Sullivan's mind felt overloaded, practically turning to mush, and she felt dizzy. Who invites a girl over to meet their parents the first time they ask her out to eat? And without any warning. I wasn't prepared at all. Feeling both angry and anxious, Olivia Sullivan stomped her foot. Why didn't you tell me beforehand we were eating at your house? Hey, relax, Michael said. My family is really easygoing. Just make yourself at home. Olivia Sullivan bit her lip. Make myself at home? Seriously? She mumbled aloud. Even if you say that. Just do me a favor, please. Grace us with your presence for a meal. Michael pleaded playfully. But, after Michael Thompson's coaxing and cajoling, Olivia Sullivan, hesitant but not entirely unwilling, let him lead her by the hand towards the Thompson house. This was Olivia Sullivan's first time actually visiting the Thompson house. Although she had driven Michael Thompson home a few times before, she had always dropped him off at the bottom of the hill and never come all the way up. She followed behind Michael Thompson, carefully walking up the granite steps. A few pear trees lined the path, but they looked bare and stark in the middle of winter. Next to the Thompson house was a church, where an old man was lazily basking in the sun. Mr. Sunday, Michael Thompson greeted him. He explained quietly to Olivia, around Pine Ridge County, they sometimes call the church the Sunday Chapel, so ever since I was a kid, I called the old man who looks after it Mr. Sunday. The old man saw Michael, then glanced at Olivia beside him. He chuckled and pulled 2 pieces of fruit hard candy from his pocket. Having lost most of his teeth, his speech was a bit unclear as he offered, Have candy. Mr. Sunday, I'm a bit old for this now. Michael Thompson chuckled resignedly, but he accepted the candies anyway, handing one to Olivia Sullivan. After Olivia Sullivan politely greeted the old man, she asked Michael quietly, Is that your grandfather? No, he just looks after the church, Michael Thompson said, leading her towards his house and explaining as they walked. When Jake Wilson and I were kids back when we were neighbors, we loved playing here. Mr. Sunday really likes kids, so he'd always give us candy and cookies. In the summer, he'd share watermelon and popsicles. You know those sugary ice pops that used to cost a quarter? Ever had one? Olivia Sullivan, sucking on her hard candy, shook her head. Oh man, those were my absolute favorite back then, Michael said, reminiscing. I'd always suck all the sweet syrup out right away, leaving just the ice, and then I'd trick Jake Wilson into trading his popsicle with me. Michael Thompson chuckled, telling the childhood anecdote. Olivia Sullivan covered her mouth, laughing, her eyes curving into beautiful crescents. Were you always such a little troublemaker? Hey, kids don't mean any harm, Michael retorted defensively. That's just childhood innocence. Or mischief. As they spoke, they reached the gate to the Thompson house. Before they went into the yard, Michael Thompson's expression suddenly turned serious. Olivia, he said, I need to ask you a favor. Seeing his serious expression, Olivia Sullivan felt a knot form in her stomach. She nodded immediately. What is it? In a minute, when you're in front of my mom, Margaret Thompson, remember to say some nice things about me, okay? Olivia Sullivan stared at him, utterly confused. Wait, what? Shouldn't you be saying nice things about me to your mom? Whose mother is she, yours or mine? Michael Thompson pushed open the courtyard gate and had just stepped inside when he saw his mom, Margaret Thompson, sitting in the yard with several aunts and uncles. They were enjoying the sun, shelling beans, and chatting idly. Well, hello there. Everyone's home, Michael called out casually. Margaret Thompson saw her son sauntering in with a grin and immediately grabbed the switch she'd clearly prepared just for him. You rotten kid. Finally decided to come home, did you? Weren't you planning on sleeping under a bridge? Clearly, Emily Thompson had come home and promptly thrown Michael under the bus. Margaret Thompson already knew about Michael's final exam results from Emily Thompson, and she was genuinely furious. That switch had Michael's name written all over it. But as she advanced menacingly towards Michael, switch in hand, she caught sight of Olivia Sullivan standing just behind him, partially hidden. Margaret Thompson instantly hid the switch behind her back, her expression shifting to an awkward but polite smile. Michael, she said, is this your classmate? Nervous and flustered, Olivia Sullivan gave a quick, deep bow. Hello, Aunt Maggie. Michael Thompson jumped in with a grin. Mom, I left my winter break homework at school, and my classmate here brought it over for me. I figured, since it's almost dinner time, the least we could do is ask her to stay and eat, right? Wouldn't want people thinking the Thompsons are stingy. Margaret Thompson stammered slightly. Oh, why yes, of course. We absolutely must have her stay for dinner. Come, dear, please come in. For the moment, she completely forgot about settling the score with Michael and warmly ushered Olivia Sullivan inside. Michael Thompson smirked inwardly. He knew his mom's personality perfectly well. If he caught her while she was fuming, he'd definitely be in for it. But introducing a bigger distraction like a guest would usually make her forget her anger, or at least postpone the lecture. Besides, Margaret Thompson was naturally hospitable and genuinely enjoyed having guests over. And in front of her son's classmate, she would certainly want to maintain appearances. Also, even though Michael Thompson knew the timing wasn't ideal, a part of him genuinely wanted to introduce Olivia Sullivan to his family, even if it was just under the guise of being classmates. In his previous life, Michael Thompson had visited the Sullivan family, but he had never brought Olivia Sullivan to the Thompson family's old home. After the family split up the households, no one lived in the old house anymore, except for Margaret Thompson, who refused to leave. Since it hadn't been occupied for a long time, many parts of the house had become moldy and dusty. Michael Thompson didn't want Margaret Thompson to go through the trouble of cleaning the place just for a 2-day visit, so whenever he brought Olivia Sullivan back to Green Valley, he always picked Margaret Thompson up and took her into the city. He had already bought an apartment there by then. He basically only came back around Christmas each year, and sometimes, when work was busy, he couldn't even make it back then. Olivia Sullivan had never met his father and barely knew anyone else in the Thompson family. Not properly introducing his wife to his family had always been a small thorn in Michael Thompson's side. Whenever the thought surfaced, he felt a pang of regret. So, in this life, he was determined to introduce Olivia Sullivan properly to his family. Smiling, Michael Thompson followed Margaret Thompson and Olivia Sullivan into the house. Margaret Thompson politely brought Olivia Sullivan a cup of tea. Why don't you sit here and watch some TV, dear? Aunt Maggie will go cut up some fruit for you. Olivia Sullivan wanted to say, Aunt Maggie, you really don't have to go to any trouble, but she was too nervous to speak, managing only a pleading look towards Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson immediately gave her an I understand look, signaling her to relax with his eyes, then said cheerfully, Mom, cut some apples. Oh, does a young lady like apples? No, she doesn't. Your darling son does. Margaret Thompson felt like smacking her foolish son on the forehead. She glared at him. Did I forget to give you hands when you were born? Get in the kitchen and cut them yourself. Michael Thompson had no choice but to go help in the kitchen. As soon as he entered, Margaret Thompson grabbed him and whispered urgently, Didn't I tell you no dating in high school? And now you're bringing a girl home? You're getting awfully bold. Michael Thompson pleaded innocence. Honestly, Mom, we're just classmates, purely platonic. Your old mom has sharp eyes. You think I can't tell? This girl is so pretty, and she looks so well-behaved. As she spoke, she subconsciously glanced towards the living room. It's just, she's a little petite. Might have trouble with childbearing. Michael Thompson leaned closer, grinning. So, Mom, you're quite pleased, huh? If I were her mother, I certainly wouldn't think you were good enough for her. Mom, am I really your son? With that rotten temper of yours, if you weren't my son, I'd have beaten you senseless long ago. Wouldn't you agree? Wow, you really love me, huh? Michael Thompson endured quite a bit of his mother's teasing. He turned serious. But Mom, Olivia Sullivan and I really are just regular classmates. Please don't say anything inappropriate in front of her. Also, let me tell you something. I basically had to drag Olivia here. Her family situation. It's complicated. He didn't go into detail about the Sullivan family with his mom, just embellished stories about the unfair treatment Olivia supposedly received. Hearing this, Margaret Thompson immediately slammed her hand on the cutting board, furious. What century are we living in? How can I still be favoring sons over daughters like that? She's their own flesh and blood. How can I not care? Michael Thompson nodded vigorously. Yeah, and tonight she'll probably just get leftovers when she goes home. It's so pitiful. So, since she came over to drop off homework today, I invited her to stay for a meal. This was a lie. Olivia Sullivan did have a hard time in the Sullivan family, but that was only after Arthur Sullivan passed away. Right now, the old man was alive and well, keeping the troublemakers in the Sullivan family in check, so Olivia's life wasn't that difficult yet. Besides, she was still a young lady of the Sullivan family. The idea of her eating leftovers was pure nonsense. But Margaret Thompson didn't know that. She actually believed Michael Thompson's tall tale, her gaze towards Olivia filling with sympathy. That poor child has such a hard life. Mom, please don't say things like that in front of her. Michael Thompson, afraid his lie would be exposed, quickly warned her. And don't bring up her family situation. I know you like to stand up for the underdog, but kids from families like that are often fragile inside. So please be careful. Go on, Margaret Thompson said irritably. Your mother's eaten more salt than you've walked miles. You think I don't understand something so simple? She handed him the prepared fruit platter. Take this fruit out to your classmate. It's fine having her over, but you can have at least called ahead. Where am I supposed to get decent ingredients this late in the morning? Just whip up whatever's easy. That won't do it all. The young lady, right? If she's eating at our house, she deserves a proper meal. Margaret Thompson thought for a moment, then said, You figure out a way to keep her here for dinner tonight, too. After lunch, I'll go buy some groceries, and we'll have a nice spread tonight. Michael Thompson snapped to attention and saluted. Mission accepted. Preoccupied with Olivia Sullivan, Margaret Thompson completely forgot about Michael Thompson bombing his exams. Olivia Sullivan sat stiffly in the living room, constantly sipping water. She was incredibly nervous. Since stepping into the Thompson house, she hadn't dared to lift her head, not even managing to sneak a proper look around. To ease her anxiety, she just kept drinking water. Michael Thompson came from the kitchen with the fruit platter, sat down beside Olivia Sullivan, and placed it on the coffee table. Olivia, have some fruit. Why you and Aunt Maggie were in the kitchen for so long? What are you talking about? Olivia looked uneasy, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, thumbs fidgeting against each other. She had a feeling they had been talking about her, and it made her worried. My mom said she's never seen such a pretty girl, thought a fairy had descended to earth, Michael Thompson said with a smile. And she also said you look really sweet, it's just. Olivia had been listening with slightly narrowed, pleased eyes, but hearing the it's just, she immediately looked up. Just what? It's just that she might not be good for childbearing. Michael Thompson couldn't possibly say that out loud, of course. It was just a thought. But his gaze unconsciously flickered towards Olivia Sullivan's flat chest. True. After Lucas was born, if I hadn't stepped in, she barely would have been able to nurse him enough. Mom's intuition is scarily sharp. Olivia Sullivan's ear tips turned bright red, color flooding her cheeks. She immediately crossed her arms over her chest and muttered softly, Pervert. If they weren't at Michael Thompson's house right now, she wouldn't have let him off with just a soft mutter. This guy always knew how to say something nice, only to follow it up with a sting. She almost regretted being able to hear Michael Thompson's thoughts. It was infuriating. Michael Thompson, thinking she had caught his stray glance, felt instantly awkward. He quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the TV, mumbling, This show isn't very good. Let's change the channel. Olivia Sullivan didn't say anything, just lightly kicked Michael Thompson's leg to express her current anger. After Margaret Thompson took the two kids inside, Aunt Daisy and Aunt Rose started whispering outside. Aunt Daisy glanced towards Uncle Ben Thompson's place, lowered her voice, and said, Well, that boy Michael, he's always been bold, ever since he was little. Aunt Rose agreed. Tell me about it. He's in high school. How can he be dating already? And bringing girls home. Shouldn't we go over to Aunt Maggie's place and check on things? Make sure she doesn't hurt the boy. Aunt Daisy had a mischievous idea. She just wanted to pop over to Michael's place and get a look at her potential future niece-in-law. Whether she actually was one didn't matter. Anyway, from the quick glimpse Daisy had caught, the girl was gorgeous, like a fairy right out of painting. Aunt Rose caught on instantly. Honestly, Michael, she said right away, bringing someone home on such short notice. How could Aunt Maggie possibly have a turkey dinner ready? Look, why don't we pitch in? We can each make a specialty dish and bring it over. Coincidentally, my brother gave me some lamb recently. I'll go stew that. We can head over to Aunt Maggie's soon. Okay, sounds good. With the plan decided, they both got up and headed back to their own places. Over at the Thompson house, Margaret Thompson was bustling about. One minute she was on the phone telling Robert Thompson, still at his workshop, not to forget some cold side dishes on his way home. The next, she was rushing between the kitchen and the living room, then dashing outside again. When she came back, she was carrying an old hen and hurried back into the kitchen. Apparently, she'd gone next door to borrow a free-range chicken. Usually, Margaret Thompson would have Michael helping her out by now, but today she didn't ask. She probably figured that since it was his classmate's first visit, the guest would be left alone with no one to talk to if Michael went to the kitchen. As for Michael Thompson, he was keeping Olivia Sullivan company. But before he could exchange more than a few words with her, a little boy ran in from outside. He wasn't tall, was skinny as a rail, and looked a bit like a little monkey. It was one of his cousins, Liam Thompson, who was just elementary school age. The little boy wasn't shy around strangers. Grinning, he leaned over the armrest of the sofa and stared intently at Olivia Sullivan for quite a while. Olivia Sullivan began to feel awkward under his stare and glanced helplessly at Michael Thompson. But before Michael Thompson could shoo him away, Liam Thompson piped up cheerfully, "Michael, this girl is prettier than the last one you brought home." Olivia Sullivan blinked, stunned. Wasn't she the first girl Michael had brought home? What was going on? He brought other girls home before? Michael Thompson was dumbfounded too. What was he talking about, bringing another girl home? Man, this kid, was he trying to get himself killed? Michael felt a sudden chill. Noticing the temperature beside him, where Olivia sat, seemed to plummet. He jumped up, whacked Liam on the head, and snapped, "When did I ever bring a girl home? Liam Thompson, are you itching for a spanking?" Liam Thompson clutched his head, looking deeply wronged. "But you did. Just last week, you brought someone home. That was the water meter reader. She was in her 30s. You little troublemaker." Michael grabbed Liam, pushed him onto his lap, gave his bottom a couple of quick smacks, and then flicked his forehead. Scram! Clutching his bottom, eyes welling up with tears, Liam stuck his lower lip out dramatically, looking utterly miserable. "Michael's bullying me. I'm telling Aunt Maggie." Michael raised his hand threateningly, which sent Liam wailing and bolting off to tattle to Margaret Thompson. Only then did he turn back to Olivia Sullivan, looking rather awkward. He gave a sheepish smile. "Sorry you had to see that." Olivia Sullivan watched him, covering her mouth to stifle a laugh. She had been nervous when she first arrived at the Thompson house, but she was gradually starting to relax. Now, she finally had a chance to really look around Michael's home. The Thompsons had built the house themselves, and whatever else you could say about it, it was certainly spacious. The first floor was divided into a kitchen, dining room, and living room. Between the dining and living areas, directly across from the entryway, a staircase led upstairs, with a small storage closet tucked underneath. The living room contained the usual furniture: sofa, coffee table, TV, air conditioner. A few potted pines stood near the wall. It wasn't luxurious, but it felt comfortable and warmly lived in. So this is where Michael grew up? The thought made Olivia Sullivan feel a growing affection for the house. Everything about it seemed pleasant. She glanced at Michael, who was now playing with a dog. It wasn't a purebred or anything fancy, just a mutt, but it looked quite cute. The dog was lying belly up on the floor, panting softly. Michael had taken his shoes off and was gently resting his bare feet on its stomach, using it as a sort of footrest. The mutt kept twisting its head, trying to playfully nip at Michael's big toe. Olivia loved animals and wanted to play with the dog too, but she was too shy to ask. Michael glanced over, instantly reading her mind. He nudged the dog's backside with his foot, coaxing him up. "Buddy, go on, go suck up to the young lady." The dog was surprisingly obedient and trotted right over to Olivia. She cautiously reached out to pet him. Buddy lifted his head and gently licked her palm, making her giggle. "What's his name?" she asked Michael. "Buddy," he replied. Seeing her somewhat speechless expression, he grinned. "Yeah, we're pretty simple with names around here. I actually want to call him Damn Dog, but Mom shot that down." Olivia suddenly remembered Michael had nicknamed her own family's dog, Lucas, Lord Doggy. His naming skills were certainly unique. While the two were busy playing with the dog and chatting quietly, Margaret Thompson emerged from the kitchen carrying a large bowl piled high with chicken. "Son, your dad's going to be a bit longer," she announced. "Why don't the three of us go ahead and eat? Don't want your friend here getting hungry." Olivia quickly stood up. "Aunt Maggie, I'm fine, really. We can wait for Uncle." "Oh, nonsense. It's fine, let's eat first. Come on over and sit down." Margaret Thompson waved them casually toward the dining table before disappearing back into the kitchen. "I'm just going to make a couple more things. You start eating now. Make yourself right at home." Robert Thompson arrived home shortly after, carrying about 2 pounds of crawfish and a crucian carp. These weren't market-bought crawfish. He caught them himself down at the Green River. As soon as he'd gotten Margaret's call saying Michael had brought a friend home, he'd rushed down to the riverbank to check his traps, hoping to bring back a little something extra for the meal. Robert Thompson really only had 2 hobbies, tending his plants and fishing. But it was already January, well past crawfish season. He must have gotten this many by asking some fishing buddies to share their catch, a sign of how much effort he was making for the guest. The Thompson family's hospitality was clear to see. Once Robert Thompson arrived home, the family was finally all together, and they sat down for lunch. Although Margaret had claimed it was just a casual lunch, she had clearly gone to great lengths. There was stewed chicken, deep-fried crawfish, clam chowder, stir-fried cabbage with vinegar, and even some home-cured smoked meat. It was quite an impressive spread. But before the family could even start eating, heads kept popping in at the door. "Oh, Aunt Maggie, you're eating? I saw you had company, and I happened to make some barbecue ribs with vegetables, so I brought some over." Aunt Daisy came in carrying a plate of barbecue ribs with vegetables, and Margaret Thompson quickly stood up, Why be so formal? Have you eaten? If not, come join us. Bring your husband too. Aunt Rose did the same, showing up with a pot of lamb stew that wasn't even fully tender yet. Before they knew it, it had turned into a big potluck for the Thompson family. Eventually, the small table couldn't fit everyone, so Margaret Thompson had Robert Thompson and Michael Thompson, father and son, bring out the big, round table with the lazy Susan they used for Christmas. Then she went back inside with the two aunts to make a few more dishes. Anyone passing by might have thought the Thompsons were celebrating Christmas early. Olivia Sullivan found herself swept up into the Thompson family meal, a bit bewildered. Looking at the table full of Thompsons, she felt a little confused for a moment. Why? Such a huge gathering? She had thought it was just going to be a simple meal with Michael Thompson's parents. But once she sat down, she quickly realized the atmosphere at the Thompson table was completely different from the Sullivan families. The Sullivans were proper and formal, with many rules. Seating arrangements mattered, and talking during meals was frowned upon. The family members only put effort into maintaining a facade of peace in front of Arthur Sullivan. But behind his back, they practically wished they never had to see their siblings again. How could the atmosphere be good when people like that ate together every day? Looking at the Thompsons, also a large family eating together, there weren't nearly as many formalities. People sat wherever they wanted and chatted casually during the meal, gossiping about this and that. Occasionally, a disobedient child would refuse to eat, and an adult would chase them around the room, bowl in one hand and a switch in the other. It looked chaotic, but Olivia Sullivan found it heartwarming. She felt a little envious. In this atmosphere, Olivia Sullivan unknowingly started to relax. Plus, with Michael Thompson sitting beside her and able to chat with her, she didn't feel out of place. Margaret Thompson took special care of her, putting a chicken leg on her plate. "Dear, eat up, eat up. You're much too thin." "Thank you, Aunt Maggie." Olivia Sullivan smiled sweetly, lowering her head to nibble delicately on the chicken leg. Margaret Thompson's cooking wasn't exactly gourmet, just average home cooking, but she excelled at stews. Whether it was chicken, pork, or barbecue ribs, they were all fantastic. Of course, it couldn't compare to the chef the Sullivans hired from a fancy hotel. But Olivia Sullivan enjoyed it thoroughly. She usually had a small appetite. A small bowl of rice and a couple of bites of vegetables were typically enough for her. But today, for some reason, her appetite seemed to have suddenly improved. Margaret Thompson chatted with her, and as Olivia Sullivan relaxed, she started talking more. Because her son had given her a heads up, Margaret Thompson avoided asking about Olivia Sullivan's family, sticking to topics like her grades and how her own son was doing in school. Olivia Sullivan took the opportunity to ask Margaret Thompson about amusing stories from Michael Thompson's past. When it came to that topic, Margaret Thompson perked right up. She had plenty to share, and every few sentences had Olivia Sullivan covering her mouth, laughing uncontrollably. The two of them chatted away like mother and daughter, leaving Michael Thompson feeling a bit left out. But Emily Thompson, who was feeding her little sister, leaned over. "Michael, you sure are bold, bringing a girl home already? Aunt Maggie doesn't want you dating too young, you know." "What are you talking about?" Michael Thompson said righteously. "We're just classmates." "Then why don't you bring other classmates home for dinner?" "You don't understand. Olivia's had it tough." Michael Thompson repeated the same story he'd used to fool his mom. But Emily Thompson pursed her lips, clearly not believing a word of it. She had personally seen Olivia Sullivan drop Michael Thompson off at home. The car she was driving that night wasn't something an ordinary family could afford. Michael Thompson didn't care whether she believed him or not. As long as his mom bought it, that was all that mattered. Just then, the younger cousin suddenly wriggled out of Emily Thompson's arms, toddled past Michael Thompson, ran over to Olivia Sullivan, and threw her arms around Olivia's legs with a plop. Olivia Sullivan jumped, startled. Turning her head, she saw an adorable doll-like little girl hugging her legs. The younger cousin patted her leg and then beckoned to her. Olivia Sullivan didn't understand, thinking the child wanted to tell her something. She leaned down closer to the little girl. "Sweetie, what do you want to tell big sister?" Instead, the younger cousin cupped her face, gave her a loud mwah kiss, and then tugged on Olivia Sullivan's skirt, yelling to Aunt Daisy, "Mommy, this big sister is so pretty. Can she be my sister? I don't want the other one anymore." Olivia Sullivan was stunned. Michael Thompson burst out laughing, and Emily Thompson looked furious. "You little brat. And after I spoil you so much." Emily Thompson slammed her hand on the table, ready to settle the score with the little girl. The whole table erupted in laughter. The little girl was shameless and insisted on sitting on Olivia Sullivan's lap, demanding that the pretty sister feed her instead of Emily Thompson. Olivia Sullivan also liked the cute little girl, often leaning down to speak softly to her while picking up food and feeding her. Michael Thompson leaned down and teased his younger cousin. This sister is so pretty. How about you let big brother sit here for a while too? The younger cousin looked at Michael Thompson, then at Olivia Sullivan, her little face wrinkling in indecision. But she had always been closest to Michael, so she finally scooted her little bottom over, freeing up one leg. Okay, Michael, you can sit here. Olivia Sullivan blushed and smacked Michael Thompson lightly. Don't say such improper things to a child. Robert Thompson noticed this interaction between her and Michael Thompson. But Robert Thompson just smiled, sipping his glass of bourbon, and didn't give it much thought. Unlike Margaret Thompson, he generally didn't meddle in his son's affairs. It wasn't that he didn't care, but he trusted his son to handle things himself. As long as he didn't become a grandfather within the next 2 years, it was fine. After lunch, Olivia Sullivan had intended to say goodbye and leave, but Margaret Thompson insisted she stay for dinner, and unable to refuse, Olivia reluctantly agreed. Her staying delighted the younger cousin the most, even more than Michael Thompson. The little girl really adored this pretty older sister, sticking to her side wherever she went. Olivia Sullivan liked children too, so she played with her. Michael Thompson asked her, I'm going to my dad's shop this afternoon. Want to come along and look around? Olivia Sullivan quickly nodded. After all, it was her first time at the Thompsons' house. If Michael Thompson wasn't around, being left alone with his family would be very awkward for her. So, later that afternoon, once the meal was over, Michael Thompson left the house with Olivia Sullivan and his younger cousin. Leaving the house, the three of them strolled along the banks of the Green River. The younger cousin held Olivia Sullivan's hand with one hand and Michael Thompson's with the other. From a distance, they looked like a family of 3 out for a stroll after dinner. Michael Thompson felt a bit awkward. Margaret's just like that, really warm. If you have something to do this afternoon, it's okay to leave. I can tell her when I get back. Olivia Sullivan feigned annoyance. What? You don't even want to spare me one meal? She was starting to relax now. After all, she'd already eaten at Michael's house and met everyone she needed to meet, so she wasn't nearly as nervous and anxious as when she first arrived. Besides, she liked the atmosphere of the Thompson home and didn't mind staying for dinner. Michael Thompson laughed. How could that be? I couldn't ask for you to stay more. If we didn't have any food, I'd even stew Buddy to serve you. Olivia Sullivan, a dog lover, was about to protest indignantly when she heard the younger cousin cheer, Michael, I want to eat. Olivia Sullivan quickly crouched down and said seriously, doggies are people's best friends. We can't eat them. The younger cousin sucked her finger, tilted her little head, her face wrinkled in confusion, and asked innocently, aren't little piggies humans good friends? What about little chickens? Well, and little bunnies and snakes. Your family eats snakes? Michael Thompson watched Olivia Sullivan crouching in front of his cousin, looking troubled, and thought their mental ages seemed about the same. 2 kids, looking quite adorable. He crouched down and gently tapped his cousin's nose. Some little animals are raised to be eaten, and some are kept as pets. They're different. The younger cousin stared with wide, curious eyes and asked in a childish voice, why, Michael? Because people are both rational and emotional. Rationally speaking, humans are part of nature, and the food chain, survival of the fittest, is nature's cycle. But people are also emotional creatures. We have feelings. Never mind little animals, people can even get attached to inanimate objects after a long time. Michael Thompson explained earnestly, while his younger cousin sucked her finger, head tilted, clearly not understanding. Olivia Sullivan couldn't help but say, she's too young to understand all that. Whether she understands is one thing, but she still needs to be told the right principles. You can't just make up lies to fool kids just because they're young. Michael Thompson wasn't joking. He sounded serious. When I was little, Margaret tricked me into believing eating chicken wings would let me fly. I totally believed her. When I got older and realized she'd lied, I was really upset. I hid under the covers that night and cried my eyes out. Olivia Sullivan burst out laughing. It took her a moment to stop, wiping tears from her eyes as she smiled. I get the feeling you'll be a great dad someday. As soon as the words left her mouth, she froze. She stole a glance at Michael Thompson, but he was smiling and wiping his cousin's nose, seemingly oblivious. Olivia Sullivan covered her flushing cheeks and looked down. Her dangling hand brushed against someone, and she snatched it back abruptly. She thought Michael Thompson had tried to sneakily hold her hand, but when she turned, she saw his younger cousin looking up at her, mouth open, eyes welling up with tears. Wow, Michael, does the pretty lady not like me anymore? That's why she won't hold my hand. I'll hold it. Olivia Sullivan quickly comforted the child, taking her hand again and teasing her for a while until her tears turned into laughter. Michael Thompson didn't intervene, just watched from the side. Once Olivia had comforted the little girl and taken her hand again, the three of them continued walking. Only then did he say softly, "You'll be a great mom someday, too." By the green river, a gentle breeze blew, sending ripples across the water surface. On the willow-lined bank, branches swayed lightly, and the breeze lifted a strand of the girl's hair by her ear. She reached up and tucked it gently behind her ear, revealing a flushed cheek. She had heard him. Report cards had come out yesterday, so, technically, today was the first day of winter break. Michael Thompson had originally promised his father, Robert Thompson, that he would start formally learning stone carving as soon as the break began. But it was late January now, freezing cold, and Michael couldn't possibly drag Olivia Sullivan up the mountain. Miss Olivia had come dressed in a delicate dress and little leather boots, the thick-soled kind chosen deliberately to make her look taller. Getting them dirty climbing the mountain would be one thing, but slipping and falling splat into a muddy field would be truly pitiful. Besides, Olivia Sullivan was from Green Valley herself. None of this scenery would be new to her. So, Michael Thompson was taking her to Sculpture Town instead. As mentioned before, because Pine Creek Town had pyrophyllite mines, over time, many people had taken up the stone carving trade. On the east side of town, a place like a business association had been built, filled with rows of shops. Apart from one small convenience store selling drinks, every single shop was related to the stone carving industry. Robert Thompson's shop and workshop were also located here. But Michael Thompson hadn't come looking for his dad this time. He hadn't brought Olivia Sullivan here just to sightsee, either. The three of them reached the entrance to Sculpture Town, where a few kids were playing with cards on the ground. Of course, these weren't playing cards, but rather stiff cardboard discs with cartoon characters printed on them. They placed them face up on the ground, then slapped their palms down nearby to see who could flip the most cards face down. Michael Thompson used to love playing that as a kid, dragging Jake Wilson and other kids to the alley behind the elementary school. He'd come home every time with his palms red and swollen, making Margaret Thompson suspect he'd been mischievous at school and gotten paddled by the teacher. As soon as the younger cousin saw the kids squatting near the entrance, she happily let go of both their hands and ran over shouting, eager to join their game. Olivia Sullivan was initially worried and wanted to go pull her back, but Michael stopped her. "It's fine," Michael said with a grin. "They're all neighborhood kids. Some are even her classmates. Let her play with them. Let's go look around, just the two of us. Weren't you always curious about where your investment went? Come on, I'll show you something eye-opening." Although Olivia Sullivan always used investing as an excuse to see Michael Thompson every day at school, and he always playfully called her Boss Sullivan, she didn't actually care what he did with the supposed investment money he took from her. $100,000 wasn't exactly pocket change for her. She was still a student, after all, and even wealthy parents wouldn't give her that kind of allowance. Then again, being a student meant she didn't have many expenses either. If Michael Thompson needed the money, he could just have it. Besides, it didn't really matter in the long run. And considering he'd saved her grandfather, even $100,000 wasn't too much to consider as a reward. But now that Michael Thompson offered to show her where the investment had gone, Olivia Sullivan was intrigued. She tried to listen in on his thoughts, but it seemed like his mind was blank. She couldn't hear anything. Michael Thompson was, in fact, thinking, but Olivia Sullivan couldn't hear his thoughts whenever they related to his system. Olivia Sullivan looked worriedly towards Michael's younger cousin near the entrance. Will she be okay? She'll be fine. My Uncle Ben Thompson's shop is right over there, Michael Thompson said, pointing to a storefront near the entrance. I'll just pop over and let him know. He can keep an eye on her. My classmate and I are going to walk around. He walked over and called out to Uncle Ben Thompson, who was busy inside. Uncle Ben, I brought Co. She's playing out front with the other kids. Can you watch her for a bit? My classmate and I are going to walk around. Having done that, he came back, smiling at Olivia Sullivan. Let's go. Oh, okay. Olivia Sullivan gave his cousin another look, but ultimately nodded and went with him. Sculpture Town occupied a triangular area bordered by 3 roads. Across the road, running alongside the Green River, stood a solitary, newer building constructed in a traditional style. Though built with modern concrete, its exterior featured wood paneling, and its roof culminated in a pagoda-like spire. Square, with tiled eaves on all 4 sides, it resembled a large pavilion. Known as the Treasure Tower, it occupied a substantial plot of land, covering several acres. The guild had built it, and the inside resembled a small, 3-story mall. Each floor housed several vendors, most of whom dealt in stones. Unlike the shops within Sculpture Town proper, which primarily sold finished carvings, the businesses here focused on raw, uncut stones. Michael Thompson and Olivia Sullivan stepped inside the Treasure Tower. The ground floor lobby was spacious, dominated by a red-carpeted stage at the center, faced by dozens of neatly arranged chairs. Noticing Olivia Sullivan gazing curiously at the setup, Michael explained with a smile, "This is where they hold auctions for raw stones. Material from Springfield, or sometimes from the Northeast or Myanmar, gets auctioned off here. Local stones usually don't make it to auction, though. Buyers contact the mines directly, load up their pickups, and drive off without giving the guild a chance to take a commission." He elaborated. "The local mines are all run by local families. In a small town like this, everyone knows everyone. It makes negotiating prices easier, and dealing directly saves them the guild's fee. But with Christmas approaching, there aren't any auctions scheduled, so the hall is empty," he finished. Olivia Sullivan nodded, though she didn't seem to fully grasp it all. Michael Thompson led her up to the second floor and into one of the shops. The owner was occupied in the back room. Michael glanced in and saw him waxing stones. Not wanting to disturb him, Michael started browsing. The shop specialized in Springfield chicken bloodstone. Display cases held cut and polished stones, their vivid red surfaces facing outward, creating a pleasingly vibrant display. Several large, uncut rough stones were also scattered casually on the floor. Michael crouched down to examine these. They were unpolished, their surfaces as coarse and unremarkable as any rock you'd find on the side of the road. Some, however, exhibited a blood seam, a thin red line exposed during mining. This was a strong indicator of value within. A single cut along the seam would reveal the quality and spread of the prized red color. "Appraise," he thought, focusing on the pile of rough stones. A faint light, invisible to others, flickered in his eyes. "Raw chicken bloodstone. Weight, 4 pounds. Origin, Springfield. Height, blood color. Coverage, quality, 30 raw chicken bloodstone. Weight, 9 pounds. Detailed data for each stone materialized in his vision. After scanning the pile for a short while, however, Michael Thompson's eyes began to ache intensely. He pushed through the discomfort to assess all the stones, then quickly shut his eyes, pressing his thumb and forefinger against the corners as tears streamed uncontrollably down his face. Olivia Sullivan had been admiring the finished chicken bloodstones on the shelves. When she saw Michael Thompson suddenly tearing up while examining the rough stones on the floor, she hurried over to help him stand. "What's wrong?" she asked with concern, steadying him. Wiping his eyes, Michael mumbled, "It's nothing. Just remembered something sad." Olivia Sullivan was confused. Sad? She hadn't picked up on any sad thoughts from him at all. Just as they were speaking, the shop owner emerged from his back workshop. Seeing customers, he approached, still in his work clothes. "Find anything interesting, folks?" Still rubbing his eyes, Michael Thompson nudged one of the rough stones near his feet. "How much for this one?" It was the highest quality stone in the entire pile, rated 86. The owner glanced down. $250,000. Olivia Sullivan gasped. That much? She knew nothing about stones, but that price for a rough rock seemed utterly absurd. It wasn't like it was jade, but she was mistaken. Years ago, chicken bloodstone hadn't been worth much, but since the turn of the millennium, prices had skyrocketed. A truly high-quality piece could easily rival jade in value. Still, that price. Michael Thompson frowned. He'd initially suspected the owner was trying to rip off a couple of kids. But examining the stone more closely, he saw that wasn't entirely the case. The stone clearly showed a blood seam, and furthermore, someone had cut a small window into it along the seam to preview the color within. This sampling revealed a glimpse of its quality. The remaining gamble lay in the extent of the valuable red coloration inside. So, while high, the price wasn't based on nothing. Of course, there was still significant room for negotiation. That was the nature of the business. Ask for the sky, then haggle your way down. Just then, the shop owner's eyes lit up in recognition. "Say, aren't you Ben Thompson's boy? My goodness, look how tall you've gotten." That was the trouble with a small place like this. Everyone knew everyone, especially within the same trade. If Michael Thompson dropped tens of thousands on a rock here, his father, Robert Thompson, would hear about it before supper time. That would inevitably lead to a family interrogation about the source of the funds. Michael Thompson had anticipated this. Today, young Miss Olivia Sullivan was his shield. The shop owner was a man in his 40s. He recognized Michael Thompson, though Michael didn't recognize him. The owner grinned. Well, since when does Ben Thompson need supplies for my shop? Last time I went to Springfield, I went with him. Business booming, so much you need to borrow some inventory from me? Why are you here by yourself? Where's your dad?" The owner was a bit of chatterbox, but friendly enough. He poured 2 cups of hot water, added some tea leaves, and brought them over. Michael Thompson replied politely, "Sir, we're not actually here for inventory. My classmate came over to hang out today, and she was just curious about this kind of stuff, so I brought her to have a look around. Please don't worry about us. Go on with your work. Want me to tell you a bit about them?" No, it's okay. You're busy." Michael didn't bring up doing business. He had his eye on one particular stone in the shop, but he knew the price was out of reach. Even if the asking price of $250,000 was inflated, there was no way it would drop below $100,000. And right now, he only had a little over $80,000 on him. Not enough. After leading Olivia Sullivan on a quick browse through the shop, Michael Thompson headed out. Olivia didn't know what Michael was up to, but it was her first time seeing these kinds of stone carvings, and she found them quite interesting, not boring at all. Plus, this was the first time she'd been out alone with Michael. Just the two of them, which made her feel different. Could this count as our first official date? Olivia decided that when she got home, she would jot down today's date in her little notebook. She couldn't possibly forget this anniversary later. Michael Thompson, however, wasn't thinking along those lines at all. His mind was preoccupied with practical matters. He led Olivia Sullivan from one shop to the next, just browsing around. After a while, he didn't have much of an impression of anything, except for one thing. His eyes hurt. They were as red as a rabbit's, shot through with blood vessels, and tears streamed down his cheeks whenever he blinked. The appraisal skill gifted by the system seemed to have no limits, but in reality, the restrictions were significant. It was incredibly taxing on the eyes. It seemed this unconventional way of making money wasn't so easy after all. Doing it once in a while might be okay, but relying on it solely for income probably wouldn't work. Michael Thompson's obvious discomfort and teary eyes genuinely startled Olivia Sullivan. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Michael mumbled, unable to explain the real reason. "Just feels like I got some grit in my eye or something." Olivia Sullivan pulled him over to a rest area and gently pushed him down onto a chair. "Sit here, wait for me a second, okay?" Michael had no idea what she planned to do. He watched her duck into a nearby shop, exchange a few words with the person inside, and emerge holding a paper cup filled with water. She crouched down in front of Michael Thompson and urged, "Quick, close your eyes." Michael obediently shut them. She dipped a finger into the water, then gently raised her hand to trace along the edge of his closed eyelid. The tip of her slender index finger felt warm and soft, her movements slow, gentle, and careful as she wiped. After a moment, she gently pulled his eyelid open slightly, leaned in close, face to face, and blew softly across his eye. Michael felt a puff of fragrant air and caught a pleasant, milky scent coming from Olivia Sullivan, so faint he could only smell it this close. "Did that get it out?" she asked softly. "Yeah." He rubbed his eye, and when he opened it, he found Olivia Sullivan's face just inches away. Her delicate features were so close he could almost feel her breath on his skin. Both of them froze, staring at each other, face to face, for several seconds. Michael's gaze lingered on her faintly flushed cheeks. How could she be so cute? He thought. Like a big apple. Makes you just want to take a bite. The instant that thought surfaced, Olivia reacted as if she'd received an electric shock. She scrambled back several steps, stopping only then, covering her flushed face and watching Michael warily, as if bracing for a surprise attack. "You..." Olivia Sullivan started to say something, but the words died on her lips. Instead, her voice softened as she asked quietly, "Is your eye feeling better?" "Huh? Oh, yeah. Much better," Michael replied. His eye was still a little sore, but the brief rest had helped considerably. He stood up. "Let's keep looking." Another 2 hours passed as they wandered. After careful searching, Michael Thompson finally picked out a stone. It was another piece of raw agate, or not particularly large, weighing just over 3 G. Initially, the shop owner had been reluctant to sell it to them, seeing they were just a couple of high school students. Even raw stones like this weren't cheap. How could students afford it? But Michael produced cash, ready to pay in full on the spot, with no haggling over payment terms, so the owner agreed to the sale. The asking price for the raw stone was $120,000, but the final transaction price was $80,000. I just want to show how much padding was in these prices. After all, there's no exact value for collectibles like this. If a piece catches someone's eye, they might be willing to pay a fortune. That's why sellers always quoted inflated prices, while savvy buyers haggled relentlessly. Offer too high, and they'd act all reluctant, making it seem like you were getting a steal. Offer too low, and they wouldn't even bother talking to you. Negotiation was off the table. Only when you pushed the price down close to their actual bottom line would they start yelling, "No way at that price." Then they'd launch into a spiel about the item's merits and how your offer was practically an insult. That's when you knew you were getting close. Once Michael Thompson had bought the stone, he carried it and headed out. Olivia Sullivan, who had looked like she wanted to say something back when he was making the purchase, had kept quiet and simply followed him. Michael led her up to the third floor. As soon as they reached the third floor, they saw it was crowded. People filled the seating area, and when they spotted Michael Thompson coming up carrying a rough stone, quite a few drifted over curiously. Michael paid them no mind and walked straight past, deeper into the floor. As they went further in, the screeching whine of cutting machines filled the air. There were several machines inside. A few were currently operating, while one stood idle. A middle-aged man in a leatherwork apron was leaning against the side, smoking a cigarette and chatting loudly with someone nearby. Michael Thompson walked over and shouted, "Master, sorry to bother you." He had to shout. The noise from the machines was deafening. Even standing face to face, you had to raise your voice considerably to be heard. The middle-aged man glanced at Michael Thompson, tossed his cigarette but onto the floor, and stubbed it out with the toe of his boot. He took the stone from Michael, turned it over and over, inspecting it carefully. Then, he reached up, pulled a marking pencil from behind his ear, and drew a line across the stone. "Boss, you want it cut like this?" he yelled, gesturing repeatedly on the stone as he spoke. Michael glanced at the line and nodded. "Yes, start with that cut." The craftsman gave an okay gesture and carried the stone over to the cutting machine. The machine whirred to life. The sharp, spinning circular blade bit into the stone, following the marked line deep into its core. A moment later, a slice fell away. By this time, a considerable crowd had gathered to watch. When the craftsman brought out the cut stone, revealing the newly exposed surface, a collective gasp went through the onlookers. "Wow, that cut definitely paid off. This color is gorgeous, so clear and vibrant. That one cut just added tens of thousands to its value." People around murmured, though some lamented, "It's just a shame there isn't more color." And it was true. The agate stone Michael Thompson had cut revealed excellent quality color, but the coverage was sparse, just a few floating red spots. Plus, the stone itself wasn't large. There was profit to be made, but not a huge amount. But hearing these comments, Michael Thompson simply smiled faintly. He walked up, took the stone back from the cutter, borrowed a marker, and drew another line on the stone. "Sorry to trouble you, but let's make one more cut." His words caused a stir among the onlookers. "Whoa, this kid's got guts. If this next cut doesn't hit anything, he'll lose the little color he has. The stone will be worthless." Young people sure are bold. Most of the onlookers were experienced in the trade and could see Michael Thompson was aiming to cut deeper, gambling there was more blood inside. This particular rough agate stone had shown no external bloodlines, making this cut a pure gamble. Even if he won, it didn't guarantee finding good color, and if he lost, it would be nothing more than a worthless rock, maybe good for building. The cutter hesitated slightly, but Michael Thompson waved his hand dismissively. "It's fine. Cut it." "Okay, boss, but just so we're clear whether it turns out good or bad, it's not my fault, all right? Don't stiff me on the payment." The cutter took the stone, making sure to add the warning. Michael Thompson laughed. "Forget the payment. I might even give you a bonus if it goes well." The cutter had no choice but to take the stone back to the saw, cutting along the line Michael Thompson had drawn. The saw blade was sharp. Cutting through the stone took only a few minutes. When the cutter held up the newly cut stone, revealing the fresh surface, the onlookers suddenly fell silent. Only the screeching sounds of nearby cutting machines filled the air. There, on the stone's cut face, was a brilliant crystalline red, a beautiful spread of floating red. Young man, are you taking the stone home to work on yourself, or are you planning to sell it?" As soon as Michael Thompson's stone was revealed, several people crowded around, asking for a price. Quite a few were interested. On the third floor of the treasure pavilion, people were always watching, waiting for someone to cut a good stone so they could buy it firsthand at a relatively good price. Michael Thompson's father and uncles were also in this business and gambled on stones themselves. But the Thompson family were primarily carvers. They had their own cutting machines in their workshop and typically carved the stones themselves before selling. However, some people didn't know how to carve. They were purely involved in stone gambling, much like those who gambled on jade. They sold the stones immediately after cutting. The people waiting on the third floor specifically made their living dealing with such individuals. The former group wouldn't lose too badly, even if the stone wasn't great, as their craftsmanship still held value. But for the latter group, it truly was riches or rags with a single cut. Michael Thompson didn't intend to carve it himself. He was still learning basic engraving. Carving a piece of material this good would take him at least 5 or 6 more years of practice. So, he planned to sell it directly. Quite a few people were interested in the stone he'd cut. The highest bid reached $380,000, But Michael Thompson ultimately chose another buyer offering $300,000, a stone merchant from the Northeast. Although it was $80,000 less, this merchant could pay immediately. There was a Bank of America branch ATM right downstairs in the first-floor lobby, and they could transfer the funds on the spot. The bidder offering $380,000 wanted to pay a deposit first and settle the balance in 2 months. Michael Thompson knew what he was up to, likely trying to find his own buyer before paying up, so he didn't bother dealing with him. The man from the Northeast was straightforward. After taking the stone from Michael Thompson, he immediately led him downstairs to the first floor to make the transfer. Looking at the $300,000 balance displayed on the ATM screen, Michael Thompson checked the number of zeros and couldn't help but feel amazed. He had made $220,000 in a single afternoon. The money had come rather easily. "What's your car number?" Michael Thompson turned and asked Olivia Sullivan beside him. Ever since they came up to the third floor, she had become quiet, seemingly lost in thought. She only spoke when Michael asked, "What for?" "To split the money. Didn't we say it was an investment?" Michael Thompson was a bit puzzled. He could tell Olivia Sullivan didn't seem very happy. Olivia Sullivan sniffed, wrinkling her nose. "I don't want it. And you're not allowed to do this anymore." With a troubled expression, she said, Isn't it just like gambling?" Michael Thompson was momentarily stunned, unsure how to explain for a long moment. It definitely wasn't the same as illegal gambling. One was illegal, the other wasn't. Stone gambling involved a lot of experience and knowledge. It wasn't something you could get into based purely on luck. If Michael Thompson hadn't been able to cheat, his own judgment wouldn't have been good enough for this business either. But had the pretty girl been unhappy this whole time just because of this? Michael Thompson guessed correctly. Olivia Sullivan really was upset precisely because of this. She was an outsider, true, but hearing people talk about riches or rags with a single cut made her feel it was too similar to gambling. She detested it. When she was little, before her great-uncle, Arthur Sullivan's brother, passed away, she had met him once. The image of the old man who had lost a hand due to gambling in his youth had left a deep shadow on her. Furthermore, Arthur Sullivan had always taught her to stay away from such things since she was a child, and she had taken his words to heart. Then there was the incident with her own brother, desperate after losing money, cornering her at the school plaza demanding cash. Olivia Sullivan despised gambling more than anything. Michael Thompson had initially wanted to explain the differences, but seeing Olivia Sullivan's sad and earnest expression, the words died on his lips. Instead, he said, "Okay, I'll listen to you." What was the point of explaining? If the pretty girl didn't want him to do it, then he wouldn't. Sometimes explanations were useless. Spoiling her and going along with her was the way to go. In the future, when they knew each other longer, she might understand it wasn't quite like that. They could talk about it then. Olivia Sullivan's heart warmed. She had expected an argument with Michael Thompson, but hadn't thought he'd be so agreeable. Thinking this, she couldn't help but soften her stance slightly. "Anyway, you just can't get addicted to this stuff. Occasionally, maybe. Just occasionally." "All right, forget occasionally. I wasn't planning on making a fortune this way anyway. It's hard on the eyes," Michael Thompson joked, then urged her, Okay, just give me your card number so we can split the loot." What do you mean, split the loot? That sounds awful," Olivia Sullivan muttered, displeased. But doing a quick mental calculation, she realized that if Michael Thompson gave her this money, it would not only cover what she had given him, but leave a considerable amount extra. If that happened, would Michael Thompson still have a reason to see her? The thought filled Olivia Sullivan with an indescribable feeling. She had been using the money situation as a pretext to see Michael Thompson, a thin veil for her real reasons. But if the excuse disappeared, even if Michael Thompson still wanted to interact with her, she wouldn't have a reason to seek him out. At this realization, her expression soured, her brow furrowed. "Already told you, I don't want it." With that, she turned and walked away without giving Michael Thompson a chance to respond. Michael Thompson watched her walk off to the side, stunned for a moment. He chuckled softly to himself. Why is she getting mad when I'm trying to give her money? He shook his head helplessly, retrieved his bank card from the ATM, and quickly went after Olivia Sullivan.